using it habitually, I thought it wasn't addictive. That led them into drug dealer relationships who were then selling them pills. Marijuana was paralyzing them. Students today often vape marijuana, which then gets it at potency far in advance of the 400 to 500% stronger. The other thing is you really got to understand, number three is today's addict doesn't look like the picture of the disheveled guy on the street corner. Today's addict, particularly at a college campus, very likely may be your roommate, a social member organization, friend. It could be you. Young people don't know how to recognize the signs because so many of their peers are doing the very same thing. So it's important for parents to look for the signs. Are they missing classes? Are they having trouble hanging on to money? Are they not looking you in the eye? The other thing is we have to help students understand, number four is self-medication isn't the answer to joy. The studies are clear, but you can cultivate your own joy. And the studies show if we're getting 8 or more hours asleep a night as we need, rest, the outdoors, walking sends blood to your brain. And if you're feeling depressed, a walk and some sunshine is almost like some instant lift. And number five, you have to understand, parents and students, if you need help, it works. Get it. Anxiety, depression, aloneness, marijuana addiction. It works. It can take some time, but there is no shame in that. And you're not alone. Many of us have been there. And I don't want to bury your children or your neighbor's children. And I've done too much of that, starting with my own.
Wow, that really hits on a number of different issues. And when you tell people about these 5 things that you mentioned, the tough conversations you should have, what has been the reaction from parents and students? I'm curious.
Yeah, so it's been so robust, first from students, honestly, because I'm having a frank conversation that they welcome because they're suffering. Then it's getting me in schools all across the country. Then parents started inviting me, and we were seeing crowds of 200. I was at Christian Brothers School in Memphis. I've been there twice. We had 200 plus parents show up. So actually, I turned that talk into this book I've got coming out this week called Things Have Changed. I didn't really plan on writing a guidebook, but what I found is parents don't have this information. They don't know how to talk to their children. They don't know how things have changed. So I just rolled it up in a guidebook, and now I'll go do the tour in Memphis and beyond all over the country, continuing to spread this gospel.
You mentioned on a number of different levels, things have changed from, say, 20, 30 years ago when we were in college, for example. What would you say is the biggest change and the biggest surprise for parents when you talk about the changes?
I think for parents, the biggest surprise for them is how much their teens and college students are struggling because they're making A's and they've been on a starter on the travel team and they're homecoming queen or this or that. But they're struggling with suicidal ideation and depression and aloneness. It has changed so much. We don't understand yet fully what's happening in this social media era. What we got to know is this generation of students, they're the first ones to come along, born into the iPhone, born into social media apps. And the studies are clear. It's tinkering with their emotions and their mind, how they see themselves, how they view others. Something is happening and it's bigger than COVID. And parents are going to have to dig into. What I say is you got to start having open-ended conversations with your teens. You got to quit telling them how they should feel and what they should do. And you have to ask them, how do you feel?
This is a very interesting conversation and something that needs to be had, certainly. I mean, mental health is something that we constantly talk about for young adults and for teens out there. I mean, it is paramount. You're absolutely right. And certainly screen time and phones and computers are contributing to some of the problems out there. Anything else you want to mention that you haven't touched on, David, that you feel is important with this conversation?
I'd say to parents, you do what I did, which is take a look in the mirror yourself. And I don't say that in a judgmental way. When I looked at myself in the mirror, when I thought my children were struggling, I realized that I had picked up and adapted new habits. And when I addressed those habits, my children responded in accord. Unfortunately, we lost William, but my other two children now are years successful in recovery. And I needed to look in the mirror. I wanted my children to look up to me as a role model. Well, I achieved that. They did. And what I learned is they were watching my every behavior, cracking a drink open at 5 every night, self-medicating myself, And what I would say to parents is, look, I mean, this life is short. You want the best out of it yourself. It never hurts to do that checkup, that self-assessment. Every moment is a new beginning, and that better is just waiting for that first step in that direction.
And not only the William McGee Institute for Student Wellbeing is on the Ole Miss campus, but I believe most colleges, if not all of them, have some sort of wellness center where students can go if they need that help. It's so important that the parents and the student know that there always is a place that can offer help and assistance in this crazy time where things, as you say, things have changed a lot. David McGee, I really appreciate this conversation. It's so valuable. It's so important to the thousands of people that join us on the digital desk here. Thanks very much. God bless you and your family. I know it's tough to talk about these things, but I know you're helping people at the same time. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys helping us spread the message, and thanks for the work you do.
Good morning, everyone. Andrew Douglas in the Action News 5 Digital Desk. We have talked a lot on the Digital Desk about the financial literacy of young people, specifically of teens, and how that there is a lack of understanding when it comes to money. All aspects of it, investing, budgeting, everything. In fact, there is a new Fidelity study out there that says teens do see investing in their future, but they're not really investing right now because they think they're too young. Well, most analysts would disagree with that assessment. But let's talk a little bit about why teens and young people are a little bit skewed when it comes to investing, and what can parents and others do to help teens get back on the right track. I'm joined now by Kelly Lannon. She is the Senior Vice President of Emerging Customers at Fidelity Investments. Kelly, good morning to you. Can you share a little bit more about that study where teens were, I guess kind of weighing in on their thinking about money and investing? Good morning.
Good morning, Andrew. I love how you're so passionate about this topic, and I am too. And the good news is that today's teens are already thinking about money and how investing can help set them up for future financial success. Fidelity's 2023 Teens and Money study found that nearly 1 in 4 teens, they've already started investing, and most teens who haven't, they plan to do so in the future. Teens are also already earning income through allowance, gifts, and working. So yeah, those teens are starting to make those money moves. And they're earning the money, they're thinking about investing. And as a result, it's really important to ensure they have access to financial education and tools to help them continue to make the most out of their money.
Yeah, education is key, and we've talked a lot about it. I mean, I have two teenagers, older teenagers, that complain to me that their high school never taught them real investing sense and money and how to budget and that sort of thing. So if there are parents watching, and we have thousands of people that watch us each and every morning here, what would you say if there was like a checklist, maybe 2 or 3 different things that parents can do today or this week to help their teen understand money better?
Yeah, and this is a great question because honestly, parents play a big role in this conversation, and they have the opportunity to be financial role models for their kids. And teens tell us that the best way to learn about investing is really from their families. And Andrew, I think your kids think that too, even though they don't always show it. So for all the other parents out there, you might be wondering how. And so I actually have 3 suggestions for you. Okay, number 1, first, have that conversation about investing. Have those money conversations. Talk to your teen about what investing is, why it's important, and more importantly, how they can start. And on the topic of starting, you have to help them get access to the tools and educations they need to begin that investing journey. For example, the Fidelity Youth app. With the Fidelity Youth app, teens ages 13 through 17 can save, spend, and invest their own money, of course, with parental oversight, and they can start with as little as $1. They have access to a debit card, they can earn money, and there's a ton of education in the app as well. And finally, and I know this can be a tough one for parents, let them make some money decisions on their own. Of course, be there to help them with the questions, but the best way to learn, I think we can all agree, is really through doing. So help your teen build their confidence to start making some of these decisions and maybe some of those mistakes on their own.
So I got both kids in college right now, and I'm trying to get them a better sense, a greater sense of how to budget and money and investing. Is there a gender gap in play here? Because I have a girl and a boy, and there are definitely differences in how they relate to money.
Okay, so well, as a mother of 2 very young girls, this is something I'm personally passionate about. And the gender gap, it begins early. And our study found that teen boys are more likely than teen girls to report positive thoughts, feeling eager, well-informed when they think about financial topics. And, I don't know if you found this with your 2 kids, Andrew, but our previous studies have also indicated that parents talk about money and how to invest with their sons earlier and more often than with their daughters. So that's what's so important for parents to be talking to all of their children about both money and investing.
We know that there is so much that relies these days on a credit report, a credit rating. How do we introduce that idea of credit with our children? That's a good way, an effective way, and something that's productive and positive.
Yeah, so I go back to one of my first tips for parents out there. You have to have those money conversations. If you are making a big purchase, for example, you're in the store with your kid and you're about to use your credit card, use that as an opportunity to start that money conversation. One of the best pieces of advice that I got from my parents is always continue to treat your credit card like it's a debit card, meaning never put more in that card than you physically have in the bank. And Andrew, I carry that advice with me today. So if that's also something that can help the parents out there who are listening, please feel free to use it.
Yeah, that's great, Kelly. What about the common myths that teens have about investing?
Yeah, so I think there's a few. The first, I think we already saw it through the study. They think they're too young. Well, guess what? It's never too early to get started. And with the Fidelity Youth app, you can get started at 13-year-olds, investing on your own. I think the second myth we hear is that you need to have a lot of money to invest. Again, not true. You can get started with as little as $1. And the third thing we say is as teens are associated with risk. Again, talking to your parents, working with them, educating yourself. You can really protect yourself from risk by making informed, educated decisions when you're getting started with investing as well.
This is great, Kelly. Anything else you'd like to mention before we let you go? This is a great, really great resource for everybody watching.
Yeah, and so I'm so glad you asked. I'm so glad you think that. And for everyone out there, go to the App Store right now. I'm kidding, but seriously, check it out. Download the Fidelity Youth app or visit fidelity.com/youth to learn more.
Kelly Lannon, Senior Vice President of Emerging Customers with Fidelity. Really appreciate your time. Thank you for the deep download on an important conversation. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Andrew. Have a good one.
Okay, Andrew Douglas back here in the Action News 5 digital desk. I want to go now to one of our friends who gives us such great knowledge when it comes to getting a job, looking at the job market, resume help. Angela Copeland, she's Vice President of Recruiter.com. Angela, good morning. How are you?
Hey, thank you for having me.
No, I appreciate you making time for us because it is such a workers market out there. Employees really have a lot of options right now beginning in 2022. And we want to talk about resumes and the best way to let your resume kind of speak for yourself, stand out, and some of the mistakes that people make out there. But let's begin with making that resume stand out, Angela.
Well, this is such an exciting time to be looking for a job, but the thing that you need first is you need a resume. So even if you don't need a job today, but you're thinking sometime in the next few months, get started and have one ready. I think that is the first mistake that people make, is that they wait until someone says to me, email me your resume, and then they've got to start from scratch. And it's just like a total panic trying to get it together.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, no question. And so once you get that resume developed, what are some ways, I guess, that you could enhance that resume?
Sure, absolutely. I think the very first thing is you should do the resume yourself. Very often people want to hire someone to write their resume for them. It's a very attractive option, right? Because it's kind of a pain. You're shoving years of experience into 1 or 2 pages, and that's what I would suggest is 1 whole page or 2 whole pages. But I've noticed that when people hire out their resume writing, sometimes there will be errors in it. So you really want to write your own resume. You want to pay very specific attention to things like spelling, because if you do have spelling errors, there's a chance they will just kick you right out. I would also think about the fact that a lot of hiring managers or HR professionals, they will read what is at the top of the first page first. And so really focus your energy on making that portion of your resume look good. Also, if there's a particular job you're applying to, closely read the job description and make sure that anything that's mentioned in the job description that you know how to do is also included in your resume. So the words that are in your resume are just as important as the actual sort of format and look and feel. I mean, it's like you wouldn't show up to an interview in shorts and flip-flops the same way that you want your resume to actually look polished and like you've put some work into it.
What are your thoughts, Angela, on cover letters?
This is such an interesting question. It's very controversial. A lot of people want to say that cover letters are no longer a thing. But I will tell you, when you're applying for a job, if there are 2 equally qualified candidates, of course, they're both going to have a resume. And if one has a cover letter, that one will be given special treatment. And in other words, the cover letter is a chance to really explain why you're a good fit for the job. And that's your chance to sell yourself, because when a hiring manager or a recruiter read through your resume, they're sort of figuring out why you're a good fit. Like they're having to piece it together. But the cover letter is your chance to really explain it to them. So I would take the time to do a cover letter. You want to explain why you're interested in the job, why you're a good fit, and do summarize some of your background. So you will be repeating some of the things that are on your resume on your cover letter.
Yeah, great advice there. Are there, and you mentioned, making sure that you do the resume yourself so you get a nice,
Mhm.
accurate depiction for that prospective employer. Are there any structures out there, Word, do they have any advantages when it comes to building that resume? Is there any place you can go to really kind of use, I don't know, some software?
It's a good question. So, the way that your resume looks, I really think it depends on the industry that you work in. If you work in a traditional industry like engineering, I would go with a much more straightforward look to your resume, like a more old fashioned look. If you work in sort of a hip industry like marketing or possibly sales, I would look for something that's more stylized. So, Microsoft Word does have templates. Interestingly enough, the website Etsy.com also sells resume templates that are really quite stylized and nice if you're working in marketing, for example. So there are places that you can look for these stylized, resume formats, but I would not use them unless you're working in an industry that is especially sort of hip and cool.
So on one of the websites, and I'm just looking here, my producer and I were checking this out. It mentioned
Sure.
something about the possibility of maybe adding hobbies or interests in a section on your resume, just to kind of go with that work culture that a lot of corporations and a lot of different offices are going towards. What are your thoughts on maybe putting interests and hobbies on that resume?
It's a good question. There have been times in my own career where I have included hobbies and interests, and there have been times where I've absolutely left them off. So I would say it really is a case by case basis. I would think about why you're adding them. So for me, I started out, my undergrad is computer and systems engineering. I started out as a computer programmer. And when I was trying to get employers to see me as more than someone who writes computer code, I started including hobbies. But of course, I picked hobbies that were interesting, like travel, that could get a conversation going. Another potential place to include hobbies is if you're looking to transition away from your current industry, and if in some way your hobby aligns to the industry that you want to move into. So it's both really, am I trying to get an employer to just see me differently, or am I trying to get an employer to understand how I might fit into their industry?
Excellent, excellent. Now, there's something else when it comes to follow up, because a lot of us, want to hear right back, right away, on demand. What's the employer? Are they interested? What do they think of this? What are your guidelines for following up after you send your resume?
That's a good question. I would say if you know who to contact, feel free to send them an email. Or if you've had an interview, send them a thank you email afterward. And, every, say, 2 weeks or so, it's appropriate to send a follow up email. Um, I would not send too many because you may be sort of labeled as sort of difficult or annoying, but you do need to get an answer. I would say don't assume that you will get a job no matter how qualified you are for it. If you really need a new job, keep looking until a company actually gives you an offer, because anything could happen. Like, for example, they could put the position on hold completely, or the hiring manager could leave the company and they could decide not to hire the position, or they could decide to hire in the future. So just keep looking until you actually have a job offer in hand.
Okay, let's talk now about some of the mistakes that people make on those resumes. We've talked about the
Sure.
enhancements, now things that are completely wrong.
There are a number of things that people can really work on on their resumes. One of the big ones I would say is look at the email address that you're using on your resume. So, a lot of folks like to use email addresses like AOL. And what that communicates to the employer is that you're a bit out of date in terms of technology, and you don't want that being the thing that you're communicating. So, look for something like a Gmail email address that would be a good fit. You also, when it comes to email address, you want to use an email address that is related to your name. So not a hobby, not like horseback rider at AOL.com. And you also don't want to include anything in that email address that is an indication of your age. So many people will put their birth year in their email address or the year they graduated from high school. You want to steer clear of any of that information. I would leave off a photo. Do not include a photo of yourself on your resume. That is done in some countries, but in the US, people do not include photos on their resume. It's an unusual thing to do. So those are a couple of areas that I would start with. Again, keeping things honest and consistent. So look for errors that are spelling errors, but also make sure that you're not fibbing, because it could get back to your previous employer, and that's not how you want to start out with any new job.
Okay, so we got the resume all situated, all nice and pretty for everybody. Then you have to do something about your social media, right? Because a lot of times when we'll hear somebody or we'll meet somebody, they'll immediately go and see if they can find them on social media, and you want to make sure that's legitimate, right?
Well, so yes, it's interesting because 20 years ago, this was sort of a non-issue, but we've all been posting for the last so many years on Facebook, for example. And so there's a huge history of information available about us on the internet. If you are starting to launch a real job search and you're starting to have interviews, I would go in and at a bare minimum, I'd look at your privacy settings. Look and see what could someone see on your Facebook, on your Twitter, on your Instagram if they were not friends with you. Because you want to be sure that anything public really represents the brand that you're putting forward in the job interview. I do think this is a real issue. Many times you talk to job seekers and they assume that a company would never Google you and would never look things up about you, but they do. They really do. So you want to do it first and make sure that what's out there really represents you in the best way possible.
Okay, Angela, all great
I'm not
advice,
sure I
very
understand.
effective here. Can we, anything else you want to mention before we let you go regarding resumes, do's, don'ts, anything?
I think the biggest thing is get started now. This is such an exciting time to be looking for a job, as you mentioned. And the last thing you want is to really be caught behind the 8 ball, so to speak. So update your resume, keep things quiet, but ask a close friend to proofread your resume for you, because they will find errors that you may have missed.
All right, Angela Copeland, Vice President, Recruiter.com. Great advice. We appreciate it very much. And thanks so much. Look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Action News 5 Digital Desk. Have you often wondered, especially this time of season, is it allergies or am I really sick? Allergies get worse as we age, and sometimes it's really difficult to really kind of differentiate between the two. Let's bring in someone to really kind of help us in this question and answer some questions. I'm joined now by Dr. Kendra Shepard, an MD with Dedicated Care Senior Medical Center. Dr. Shepard, thanks for joining us. Where do we begin on that? Because I know a lot of people, especially here in the Memphis area, a lot of people suffer from seasonal allergies. How do we determine really quickly if it's allergies or if it's a sickness? Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me again. And yes, allergies, we call it allergic rhinitis and hay fever. It's so common. 1 in 4 adults and 1 in 5 children have allergies. And the way we usually tell, the normal symptoms are that runny nose, the itchy eyes, itchy ears, that postnasal drip where you're going in the back of your throat. Those are all common with allergies. However, if it's sickness, such as a virus, most of the time you'll have a fever or very sore throat as opposed to a scratchy throat. And those are the times where you want to sort of contact your doctor to see if you need to be screened for viruses like flu or COVID.
Gotcha. And, as I mentioned off the top, Dr. Shepard, as we age, allergies get more severe. I didn't know that. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the reasons behind that?
Yeah, and aging is a process. And so all of it, when we age, our cells age, even our immune system ages. So as we get older, the allergies tend to get worse because our immune system is not working as well as it did in our younger years. And so with the season lasting longer, we just want to be able to do as much preventing, making sure they avoid the triggers, making sure they stay out of the pollen, to prevent the allergies, or at least reduce the allergies so that they won't get sicker.
Yeah, in Memphis and the Mid-South, I mean, we have the tree pollen, grass
Yes.
pollen, and it just makes people go crazy. Is
Yeah.
there ways? Let's hear some of the ways, the best ways, preventative methods to really kind of at
Yeah.
least maybe not stop allergies altogether, but at least kind of reduce some of
Right.
those symptoms.
Yes. So of course we want to avoid the pollen, right? We can't avoid it when we go outside. It's covering our car, and it's outside. But once we come back in, what we want to do is take our clothes off, remove our shoes, shower at night, sort of shower before you go into the bedroom. You don't want it in your bedroom. When you are out, it's optional, but you can wear a mask to reduce the risk, and goggle-like glasses to kind of keep it out of your eyes. Those are ways to avoid the pollen. It's inconvenient because we get a little hot and sticky, and so you want to do that. And then another step for people who have really kind of moderate to severe allergies, saline nasal sprays are really good. So rinsing out your nose with a saline solution and sort of getting all that gunk out preventively before you use your over-the-counter allergy medicines really, really helps in preventing, or at least decreasing, our reactions to allergies.
These are some great tips, easy to understand and easy to implement today. Anything else
Yeah.
before we let you go, Dr. Shepard, that we can touch on you feel is important about this?
Well, I want to touch on, I want to make sure that people are talking to their doctor about allergies, going to a trusted source. Here at Dedicated, we ask people to come in all the time. And I say that because we want to make sure it's allergies and not a virus, and sometimes people can't tell. And so we commonly test for flu and COVID regularly. And we do that because we have medicine for it, right? And so uh, sometimes when you're like, okay, well, it's allergies, or you're someone who doesn't normally get triggered by pollen, that's a time to come in and say, hey, I just want to make sure, everything is going okay. So make sure you have a doctor you trust, come on in, get tested, flu or COVID, get that reassurance, and also get those medicines to help mitigate that allergic rhinitis or those signs of allergies.
All right, Dr. Kendra Shepard, we appreciate your time this
Thank
morning.
you.
Great conversation, and I know it helped
Yes.
a number of different people out there. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much.
Let's talk about brain health and raise awareness for a disease that affects millions of Americans nationwide. An estimated 6.7 million Americans aged 65 and older live with Alzheimer's dementia. And of that population, almost half or more will develop agitation in Alzheimer's dementia. And there are so many different ways and symptoms to be aware of Alzheimer's disease, but people might not be familiar with the signs and symptoms of agitation. Let's bring in now to the digital desk Dr. George Grossberg. He's joining us now to provide some key insight on this complex condition. Doctor, good morning to you. Let's talk a little bit about some of the background on agitation when it comes to Alzheimer's dementia. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you for having me. Yeah, agitation, as you mentioned, is not only a very common kind of symptom in Alzheimer's dementia, but also very distressing. When we talk about overtly aggressive behaviors like kicking and hitting and so on, that can be very distressing to the family, to the care partners, and is in fact a leading cause of ending up in long-term care where the family can no longer take care of the individual at home.
It sounds terrible. My father was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease a few years ago, so I'm familiar with that. Haven't seen the agitation aspect to it, but how can caregivers and patients become more empowered to manage this condition if, in fact, it does show on their loved one?
Yeah, so I think empowered is the right word. You begin the empowerment by basically making sure that your healthcare provider knows about this behavior change. And we are looking at a change in behavior. This is not the way the individual usually behaves or is. Unfortunately, healthcare providers are so busy, they often don't ask about these kinds of behaviors. So it's very important for the family, the care partners, to make sure that the healthcare provider knows about it. And then you can begin to work together to implement and develop a treatment approach.
I was going to ask you, what would be the best treatment approach for patients and caregivers that are facing this agitation? And how bad does the agitation get?
Well, it gets bad enough that the family, even the devoted, loving family, finally throws the towel in and says, I just can't do it anymore. And they start thinking about the need for memory care or assisted living or even a skilled nursing facility. That's how bad it can get. But the treatment begins always with educating the care partner, the family. What are things that you might be doing that are triggering this behavior? And what can we do to kind of modify it or to decrease it? Are there things in the environment? Too much noise, too much stimulation, for example, that can be modified? Are there things that you can do by way of structured activities throughout the day that will be calming, that will be anti-agitant? For example, soothing music. Therapeutic touch, looking through a family album, reminiscence with the photos, things that the patient might enjoy on a regular basis that have a calming effect. So we always begin with the non-pharmacologic treatment approaches.
What else are we missing here, Dr. Grossberg? Is there something else that we can tell our viewers? We have thousands of people who tune in each and every day here on the digital desk. Anything else that we can mention about this?
Yeah, I think the key is what we mentioned earlier, a couple of things to emphasize. One is make sure if there's a behavior change, you recognize that this is part of Alzheimer's disease, very, very common. Make sure your healthcare provider knows about it. And then I can share with your viewers a very helpful website where they can get more information about recognizing, sharing the info with your healthcare provider, and managing agitated behaviors in your loved one with Alzheimer's dementia.
Okay, and so some people out there may be hearing this for the very first time, but may be familiar with the signs and symptoms that you just mentioned. Where can people go online, perhaps, to get some more information about this condition?
So there's a really very helpful and thorough website, which is called, all one word, Managing Agitation in ALZ.com. So Managing Agitation in ALZ.com. And there's a lot of useful hands-on information that your viewers can get on that website.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, Dr. George Grossberg, we really appreciate your time this morning. Thanks for letting us know about this condition, and we appreciate the discussion. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us here on the Action News 5 Digital Desk here on a Monday. It's going to be a hot and toasty one across the Mid-South. Of course, a heat advisory in effect here today because of the heat and humidity combination. Actual air temperature today in the mid-90s, but it's going to operate much hotter than that. The summer heat stress elevated, especially across portions of east central Arkansas, northwest Mississippi here today. I think everybody's going to be dealing with the heat stress. That's not going to be the thing that we're going to have just pockets where it's not going to be the problem. I think it's just going to be a little bit more elevated here where feels like temperatures in these locations could very well crest closer to about 110 degrees in some instances in places like Marianna, up towards Forest City, Helena, West Helena, Clarksdale, Marks, as well as Tunica. Most other locations near 100 to 105 degrees in West Tennessee and northern portions of Mississippi. And unfortunately, this will probably be the case even going into your Tuesday as well. Of course, with the summer heat cranking up across the Mid-South, a reminder to drink plenty of hydrating fluids, wear light, loose-fitting clothing, take plenty of breaks in the shade or indoors, and checking in on folks, just being neighborly in this situation when it comes down to the heat, checking in on folks who may not have adequate access to cooling relief, and also your pets. Make sure they have cool drinking water, clean drinking water, and of course, just replenishing that because, of course, you need to drink plenty of water. They need to drink plenty of water as well. Let's go hour by hour with our First Alert Futurecast. For today, of course, it's going to be the heat and humidity bubbling up with the daytime heating. A few clouds, maybe an isolated shower, but many spots will likely remain dry here today. Highs middle to upper 90s. Tonight will drop into the 70s to near 80 degrees. I wouldn't be surprised if in the city we are still sitting like this morning, hovering right around 80 degrees when you wake up early tomorrow morning. Through the day on Tuesday, it's going to be more sunshine, but here's the thing. A few downpours may bubble up with the daytime heating as we get towards the afternoon hours. Give you a first alert to that. Of course, this time of the year, we're talking about the potential for those bubbled up downpours in random locations at random times. And of course, it will be during the peak heating. They'll cool you off, but those heavy downpours may put down a quick quarter of an inch of rainfall as well. And in its wake, yeah, the sun will come back out, but it'll be pretty steamy directly after that. Highs tomorrow topping out in the upper 90s. Here comes a frontal boundary dropping into the area. I'll give you a first alert to this. This will bring us a little better chance for rain and storms and maybe slightly cooler air for a brief moment in time. It's not going to be very much, though. The showers and storms, at least initially, will start to fade away as that first band drops southward. The showers and storms will kind of taper off in coverage. But there's still going to be some widely spaced downpours in a few spots, and this is going to be the launch point for more downpours to develop during the afternoon and evening hours. Some of these downpours that are able to develop in the afternoon period of your Wednesday could be quite heavy, maybe a strong storm or two with some gusty winds, frequent lightning, small hail, not completely out of the realm of possibility. That will continue to drop southward along the front and will clear things out just in time for your Thursday, but we have to get to that point first. One way to stay up to date anytime and everywhere is on the Action News 5 First Alert Weather app. Download it in the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. Upon the 7-day, we'll go 96 for today, 98 for Tuesday. I put the rain chances around 20% for Tuesday. And the reason why is because those downpours that are able to bubble up on Tuesday may be a little bit more prevalent in a few spots. But when they do come down, yeah, it could be a little heavy. The better chances for more widespread opportunities for rain will be Wednesday. A reminder, Wednesday is not going to be an all-day rain. It will not rain all day. But when the rain is coming down, it could come down heavily. Could be a strong storm or two. And there's a little better chance for more folks to see rain. I don't think everybody will see rain, though, on Wednesday. Some spots will stay completely dry. That is the feast or famine type of situation that you have to tangle with during the summer months. Drier by Thursday, Friday. I think we're low 90s Thursday, mid 90s on Friday, middle 90s again on Saturday, maybe upper 90s in a few spots. Low 90s again Sunday, and maybe a little better chance for some rain and storms to return as a frontal boundary, another one, approaches the region. But the general trend here is hot, it's humid. Welcome to summer, my friends. It's not changing anytime soon.
Okay, let's talk about healthy eating. Eating healthy, sometimes that can be kind of easy. Sometimes it's a little more difficult. And how can we sneak more, I don't know, fruits and vegetables into our diet? The average American consumes about 2.7 servings of fresh fruits and vegetables a day. That's about half the amount that you should. In fact, research published in the journal Circulation found that eating 5 servings a day of fruits and vegetables will help you live longer and have a healthier life. So let's talk about ways to kind of sneak in the extra fruits and vegetables into our diet. I'm joined now by Quinay Johnson, a clinical dietitian at Regional One Health. She's joining us on the digital desk. Quinay, thank you so much for joining us. Let's talk about maybe some vegetables and some fruits out there that may be easier than others that can sneak into our diet. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Andrew. And thank you for getting my name right.
Awesome. I'm glad. So what do you think?
So I did a little research before going on to bring you a few options. Some of the things that I found that were easier to add into your diet is cauliflower, which is a great source of vitamin C raw, but cooked, it still gives fiber, which is great for your digestive health. And it also provides carotenoids, which research is showing that it can help protect you from cancer and heart disease. And a few other options are mushrooms, which I personally love, avocados, which is a great source of fat, and spinach, lentils, and tomatoes are just a few of the things that you can use in your diet.
I love that. I love all those that you mentioned. Cauliflower is such an underrated vegetable out there. You can use it for so many different things. And, we hear a lot. My wife is gluten-free, so we can't have traditional pizza, but she has the cauliflower crust pizza, and it tastes amazing. So very good. Love mushrooms as well, of course. Why don't we go meal by meal here, and maybe some tricks to put more fruits and vegetables in for breakfast, and then for lunch, and then for dinner. What do you think?
Okay, we can start off with breakfast, which is one of my favorites. I often do personally egg bakes, which you can throw in those tomatoes, spinach, mushrooms, broccoli, and cauliflower as well. There's also breakfast breads, like your banana breads, that you can get a lot of fiber from the banana from, and it's also a fruit. You can throw in blueberries, strawberries. There are even fruit bakes where you can throw a plethora of different fruits into the bread and get to use them before they go bad, 1, and 2, it tastes wonderful. And then also you have your oatmeal that you can throw fresh fruit in, or oatmeal bakes. And I've actually seen some good recipes online for savory oatmeal where you add vegetables on top of your oatmeal as well. And then last but not least, we love smoothies. So you can throw in fruits, vegetables. I recommend doing a very flavorful fruit such as pineapple, and then throw in spinach so that you can get your greens. And if you want to get bang for your buck and get all 3 food groups, your carbs, protein, and fats, you throw in avocados as well. And that's a great way to get in fruits and vegetables in the morning.
I love that. I love cauliflower. I mentioned cauliflower, but I love avocado and banana bread. These are all really easy, basic ways that people can get it in. Tell me about lunch and dinner.
So lunch, not too many people talk about pasta salads, but I think that is a great option because you can throw in your beans. You can have what we love, pasta. And if, like you were talking about your wife, you can throw in gluten-free pasta. There are plenty options. Banza, which is a protein chickpea pasta, is something that I've seen on the shelves often. And also, I had the pleasure of working in a foods lab for my master's degree, and one of my classmates, her name's Annie, she made zucchini tots, which taste amazing. It's a tit for tat between regular tater tots and zucchini tots, and it's really easy to make at home. And then the other thing that I had was we talked about cauliflower. I see often that many vegans do cauliflower wings. And the key to it is you roast it and use the same seasonings that you would use on wings that you will buy in Memphis, like your seasoned, your honey hot. If you love ranch, use ranch, lemon pepper. The list goes on.
I love that. That sounds good. You're giving us an idea, creative ideas here, Quinay. What about dinner? I would think like salads for sure. You know, vegetables. I love having a salad almost every meal. What about fruits for dinner?
Fruits for dinner that can serve as your dessert for dinner. Pair it with yogurt. I've seen yogurt barks where people throw in blueberries, raspberries, peaches, and lay it out on a baking dish and freeze it so that once you have dinner and once you're done and you want to, I'm trying to think of the word, soothe your craving, that's an option. Also, freezing the smoothies from breakfast that you have left over is a icicle since we're wrapping up on summer going into fall. And then also I'm trying to think, salads that you mentioned earlier, great ways to add fruits to dinner.
I like it. I like it. Let's talk about any other tips that you may have just to sneak in a little more fruits and vegetables. I was surprised to read that the average American consumes 2.7 servings of fruits and vegetables a day when we need more, I guess closer to 5.
Yes, and Andrew, I'm so glad you mentioned that statistic. You were on it. But another way that we can add in more vegetables specifically, I like to key in on mushrooms again because it's my favorite. But also, I've seen even in restaurants where they add mushrooms to meat mixtures. So, for example, your meatloaves, burgers, meatballs, dicing them up finely and making sure you cook a lot of the moisture out so that for the people that really don't care for mushrooms, they don't get the taste that kind of reminds them of mushrooms, but still get the benefits of the vitamins and minerals that are within mushrooms to be added to the meat and also give you that benefit of meeting your vegetable intake for the day is another great way to get in a vegetable. And also I like using lettuce for buns for burgers, and stuffed bell peppers are another way of getting in more vegetables into the day.
That's so good. You're making me hungry here, Quinay. I mean, these are all awesome ideas and suggestions. Really appreciate it. We have thousands of people that watch us each and every morning here on the Digital Desk. So I know that everyone is really happy with a lot of these suggestions. Quinay Johnson, clinical dietitian at Regional One Health. Thanks so very much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have an amazing day.
Okay, we know May is Mental Health Month. It's always a good time to talk about postpartum depression because we know that 1 in 10 women will experience postpartum depression after giving birth, and this can last anywhere from 3 to 6 months. And it's estimated that 50% of mothers with postpartum depression are not diagnosed by a health professional. It's a very serious situation. And I want to bring in right now someone to talk about it, do a deep dive here. Dr. Dr. Patrick Cleeton with St. Francis Medical Partners, OBGYN. Doctor, good morning to you. Let's talk about first off, the postpartum depression. How common is it when it comes to you and your practice here in Memphis in the Mid-South?
Well, you said it, about 10% of patients experience it, and not everyone comes forward to mention their symptoms. There can be a stigma around it, and that's one of the things that we're working to get around is being comfortable talking about it so that you can get help, because it's a very treatable condition.
Yes, sir. And so let's talk now about the signs and symptoms of PPD.
So the main thing is depressed mood beyond what's normal. Also feeling tired, which is pretty common during the postpartum period. But when it gets to that point that you're not able to do the things that you need to do, such as taking care of yourself, taking care of your baby, when those things start to feel like a struggle, that's when it gets to the abnormal. When you start losing interest in normal activities that you used to take interest in, like going for walks, when you start noticing disturbances in sleep, such as insomnia, sleeping all the time, just not feeling interested in things. And those are the signs. And when you start to not feel like yourself for an extended period of time, beyond what you would expect for just taking care of a newborn, then that's when it starts to become something that we need to address.
So when a woman comes into your office and you see these signs and perhaps symptoms of postpartum depression, what's the treatment that you recommend?
So there's really kind of three main things that we discuss, which is the first one is counseling. Just talking through some of these issues, working through some of these issues is usually the opening treatment, and not everybody wants that. So the next line would be using antidepressant medication. That medication is considered safe even if patients are breastfeeding, so it's a good option. And then the third option would be using both of those together, and that seems to get some good results for folks to talk about things and use medication to help level out their moods and address their symptoms.
So if there are perhaps people that are going to be expectant mothers or someone that's trying to have a baby, is there maybe some guidelines that you just kind of counsel someone that is trying to get pregnant? I mean, is that too early?
Well, one of the biggest risk factors is somebody who has a history of depression prior to pregnancy. They're potentially predisposed to having depression episodes in the postpartum. So that would be one thing that I would counsel them. If this is something you've dealt with in the past, depression, anxiety, you're concerned that your support network is not adequate, those would be things that I would want to address and make sure that we've gotten the support network, we've gotten a counselor on board prior to actually getting to that point where it's 4 weeks into the postpartum period and we're starting to unravel. If we can address these and get those things set up beforehand, obviously we're going to do better in the postpartum period.
Doctor, we have thousands of people that join us each and every morning on the Action News 5 digital desk. Is there anything else that you want to mention when it comes to postpartum depression, expectant mothers who have given birth, and May being, Mental Health Awareness Month?
Again, it's going back to what I said initially about the stigma. This is a very common thing. It's very treatable, and it's something that it does rely on the patient to bring these issues up, as we do ask about it during, of course, all our postpartum visits. But if you say, no, everything's fine, and just kind of gloss over it, then it's hard to know. It doesn't always have the outward signs like some of the physical things. But if we're able to have that conversation, then we can address these issues and we can get you back to hopefully being more of yourself and living your normal life sooner rather than later.
Okay, Dr. Patrick Cleeton, OBGYN with St. Francis Medical Partners. Appreciate the conversation, sir. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Andrew Douglas in the Action News 5 digital desk. It is peak motorcycle riding season as families all across the U.S. and here in the Mid-South getting ready for summer road trips. Motorcycle Safety Foundation celebrating 50 years of rider education and training has some tips for motorists out there, motorcyclists as well, so that everyone can enjoy a summer of fun. I'm joined right now by comedian and motorcycle aficionado Alonzo Bodden. Welcome, Alonzo. How's it going out there?
I'm great, Andrew. How are you?
Doing well. Thanks so much. So let's talk about what you can offer to help all those motorcyclists out there have a safe summer out on the road. I see you got a nice chopper behind you.
Yeah, well, you nailed it. It's about safety and having fun. So the first thing we like to talk about with Motorcycle Safety Foundation is training. There are all types of training classes, on-road, off-road, beginner classes, experience classes. You never have too much experience to learn. And it's not like when I learned, when they just showed you, here's a throttle, here's a brake, and let's hope you get home safe. Training and safety equipment. I'm wearing a jacket. I have on riding jeans. They have the armor and the padding in them, over ankle boots, wear gloves, wear a helmet. You got to be safe out there.
Yeah, I love the idea of the equipment that you have to wear, because you could be the safest driver out there, but someone else could be very reckless. So what training options are there that you can suggest for some riders?
Well, there are great training courses through the Motorcycle Safety Foundation. So as I said, for beginners, there are beginning courses where you show up, you bring your jacket, you bring your gloves, they'll provide the motorcycle, you'll have a helmet, and you'll literally learn from the ground up on how to ride. And for the more advanced people, you can always brush up on your skills. Summer is just starting, so maybe you haven't ridden in a little while and you want to get the rust off before you get on the road.
No question. What about additional tips out there for motorcyclists and drivers alike?
Well, for motorcyclists and drivers alike, the big problem is seeing motorcycles. A lot of times people say they didn't see the bike. So if you're driving, we ask you to look twice. Motorcycles are out there. We have a smaller profile. You might not see us right away. Don't necessarily depend on your blind spot monitoring or your car technology. Actually, turn your head and look. And please don't be on the phone, and of course, not be intoxicated while driving or riding. To the motorcyclist, remember, the car may not be able to see you. So anything you can do to make yourself more visible helps. And always ride like you're invisible. That was a tip they gave me when I started. They said, hey, ride like they're out to get you, and it's worked pretty well.
Yeah, I mean, defensive driving, right? I mean, that's what it is. It's like you just assume that the guy who's driving the car just doesn't see you, and you have to be very defensive out there. Is that kind of the mentality?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Unfortunately, it does happen quite often. They say they didn't see you. So you have to see them. You have to anticipate when you ride a motorcycle. And these are the kind of things you learn in a training class about anticipation. So when you see a car at a driveway, you know that that car may pull out in front of you, or someone may make a left turn in front of you. Unfortunately, that's a common thing that happens, and they don't see you. So you learn how to make yourself more visible on the motorcycle and to pay attention to everything around you. When you're riding a motorcycle, you are actually part of the environment, so you want to stand out.
Good idea there. I know you mentioned, doing a training course. You mentioned some safety gear. Is there anything else we can talk about right now that maybe can help people this summer?
Let's be courteous to each other. Let's share the road. I think a lot of times people get a little angry, get a little anxious. They're not paying attention. Let's take a moment and look out for each other, whether you be a motorist behind the wheel or a motorcycle rider. We can share the road. We can all be safe. So yeah, to be courteous out there is the one thing that it's difficult to teach, but let's practice it.
Good idea. Where can we go for more information just about these tips that you talked about, Alonzo, and maybe some other training options, that sort of thing?
Go to the Motorcycle Safety Foundation website. The Motorcycle Safety Foundation has been training people for 50 years. Believe me, they cover everything. You can go to their website, put in your zip code. They'll show you training classes that are near you. Get out there, learn, be safe, and have a great time.
Alonzo Bodden, really appreciate you giving us some great advice and some ways to really just stay safe this summer on the roadways. We appreciate it, man. Thanks very much.
All right. Thank you. We'll see you out there.
And thanks for joining us here on the Action News 5 Digital Desk here on a Monday. It's going to be a hot and toasty one across the Mid-South. Of course, a heat advisory in effect here today because of the heat and humidity combination. Actual air temperature today in the mid-90s, but it's going to operate much hotter than that. The summer heat stress elevated, especially across portions of east central Arkansas, northwest Mississippi here today. I think everybody's going to be dealing with the heat stress. That's not going to be the thing that we're going to have just pockets where it's not going to be the problem. I think it's just going to be a little bit more elevated here where feels like temperatures in these locations could very well crest closer to about 110 degrees in some instances in places like Marianna, up towards Forest City, Helena, West Helena, Clarksdale, Marks, as well as Tunica. Most other locations near 100 to 105 degrees in West Tennessee and northern portions of Mississippi. And unfortunately, this will probably be the case even going into your Tuesday as well. Of course, folks, just being neighborly in this situation when it comes down to the heat, checking on folks who may not have adequate access to cooling relief, and also your pets. Make sure they have cool drinking water, clean drinking water, and of course just replenishing that because of course you need to drink plenty of water. They need to drink plenty of water as well. Let's go hour by hour with our first alert futurecast for today. Of course, it's going to be the heat and humidity bubbling up with the daytime heating. A few clouds, maybe an isolated shower, but many spots will likely remain dry here today. Highs middle to upper 90s. Tonight will drop into the 70s to near 80 degrees. I wouldn't be surprised if in the city we are still sitting like this morning, hovering right around 80 degrees when you wake up early tomorrow morning. Through the day on Tuesday, it's going to be more sunshine, but here's the thing. A few downpours may bubble up with the daytime heating as we get towards the afternoon hours. Give you a first alert to that. Of course, this time of the year, we're talking about the potential for those bubbled up downpours in random locations at random times. And of course, it will be during the peak heating to cool you off, but those heavy downpours may put down a quick 1/4 of an inch of rainfall as well. And in its wake, the sun will come back out, but it'll be pretty steamy directly after that. Highs tomorrow topping out in the upper 90s. Here comes a frontal boundary dropping into the area. I'll give you a first alert to this. This will bring us a little better chance for rain and storms and maybe slightly cooler air for a brief moment in time. It's not going to be very much, though. The showers and storms, at least initially, will start to fade away as that first band drops southward. The showers and storms will kind of taper off in coverage. But there's still going to be some widely spaced downpours in a few spots, and this is going to be the launch point for more downpours to develop during the afternoon and evening hours. Some of these downpours that are able to develop in the afternoon period of your Wednesday could be quite heavy, maybe a strong storm or two with some gusty winds, frequent lightning, small hail, not completely out of the realm of possibility. That will continue to drop southward along the front and will clear things out just in time for your Thursday, but we have to get to that point first. One way to stay up to date anytime and everywhere is on the Action News 5 First Alert Weather app. Download it in the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. Upon the 7-day, we'll go 96 for today, 98 for Tuesday. I put the rain chances around 20% for Tuesday. The reason why, because those downpours that are able to bubble up on Tuesday may be a little bit more prevalent in a few spots, but when they do come down, it could be a little heavy. The better chances for more widespread opportunities for rain will be Wednesday. A reminder, Wednesday is not going to be an all-day rain. It will not rain all day. But when the rain is coming down, it could come down heavily. It could be a strong storm or two. And there's a little better chance for more folks to see rain. I don't think everybody will see rain, though, on Wednesday. Some spots will stay completely dry. That is the feast or famine type of situation that you have to tangle with during the summer months. Drier by Thursday, Friday. I think we're low 90s Thursday, mid 90s on Friday, middle 90s again on Saturday, maybe upper 90s in a few spots, low 90s again Sunday, and maybe a little better chance for some rain and storms to return as the frontal boundary, another one, approaches the region. But the general trend here is hot, it's humid. Welcome to summer, my friends. It's not changing anytime soon.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Action News 5 Digital Desk. I am holding a book here that just was on the USA Today National Bestseller list. The title, Go to Hell, Ole Miss. And it's written by Jeff Berry, who's a native Memphian. He is now joining us on the Action News 5 Digital Desk. He reached out to me online. I said, absolutely, I'll talk to you about this book. And Jeff, good morning to you. I immediately saw some of the people that wrote in the description of your book. I've interviewed Hampton Sides. I've interviewed Dave McGee. So I'm very familiar with some of the people that you have in this book. First off, I want to say good morning and tell me a little bit about yourself. I know you're a native Memphian. Where did you go to high school and did you go to Ole Miss?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me and good to be here. Now, I went to MUS, went to the same high school that Hampton Sides went to, and I do give MUS and their English and writing department credit, a lot of credit for just, I can remember so many of my English teachers, but not necessarily the other teachers. No offense to the math and history teachers, et cetera, but it really, I think they really had some great teachers that gave encouraged a passion for writing and, gave some basic skills. So yeah, I grew up in Memphis and then I ended up going to Vanderbilt, played tennis at Vanderbilt and went there for undergraduate and graduate school. And then I've been in real estate, pretty much the land business ever since. I've always loved to write, and I can go into that as well. I don't know how much of a bio you want me to ramble on at this point, but that's kind of the basic. I've been in the land business and lived we moved to Chattanooga about 6-8 years ago. Still planning on moving back, but we haven't made that transition back yet. But anyway, definitely consider Memphis my home.
Excellent, excellent. So you're in Chattanooga now. That's where you're talking with us?
Yes. We live in
Gotcha.
right outside of Chattanooga. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha,
Yep.
gotcha. So you know, I was reading this last night. I've been reading it for a couple of days, Jeff, and you know, tell me where you came up with the title, because you know, I'm seeing how it's based in Mississippi. I guess early 70s. It's about a former POW with World War II. And some of the intricacies of different people in his life, and particularly his daughter. But tell me about the title.
Yeah, the title actually comes from it's very odd. It comes from the first night of captivity of the main character in the book, Big John. His first night of captivity as a German prisoner of war. And that is based on the pretty much identical story of my dad. Now, my dad, this is a novel. This is the main character is, you know, not an exact portrayal of my dad by any means. But my dad, parents had me very late in life. And so I grew up around all these World War II storytellers. And my dad always encouraged me to write. And he was a big inspiration to me. He's one of the 4 people this book is dedicated to. But he was a B-24 pilot in World War II, and he was shot down over Germany, and he was captured. Since he was the pilot, he was by himself, and they basically tossed him into an old German shed. I envision it something like the shed on the cover of the book. And they tossed him in there, and I won't spoil it, but I'll just say that story comes from my dad's first night in captivity as a prisoner of war in Germany. And he was married to the lady who became my mom, but he was married at the time to my mom, future mom, who was living in a sorority house on the Ole Miss campus at the time. So that's also part of the story as well. And that story is in the book. And I was in Holly Springs, Mississippi, which is basically where the book said. I used the fictional town of Hope Springs when the inspiration for the book hit me. And so that's kind of where the title comes from. It really fits into the main character and the location of the book, but it's not by any means an anti-Ole Miss book, although I don't necessarily always tell my Mississippi State fans that. I like them to.
Well, immediately, the Mississippi State crew here in our newsroom was like, "Hey, I want to read that book." But
Right.
But listen, I knew that there had to have been a story with regards to the title, because I started reading the book and I was like, well, there's not really a mention about Ole Miss and his distaste for the University of Mississippi, so there's got to be another reason why. And I mean,
Yep.
it's interesting to know that your mom went to Ole Miss.
Right.
And did your dad go there as well?
No, he did not go to college.
Okay.
He actually went to what was then Southwestern to brush up on his math for his pilot's test. He was set on being a pilot, and so he had to brush up on his math. And then after the war, he came back and went to work. So he did not go. I almost went there though, and a lot of my family and frankly most of my friends went.
Gotcha. So tell me why you wrote this book. You said it was dedicated to your father, and I can tell you did a lot of work to develop some of those characters that are set in the beginning of this book, where you're kind of setting the table for the reader, doing a lot of character development in North Mississippi in the 70s. And what these people are all about.
Yeah, so it's a good question. I don't know if I have a really quick answer, but I'll do my best. I've always loved to write, and since I was a kid, my dad, when I go on these trips with my dad and his World War II buddies, I'd be the only kid, and I, just love sitting around listening to these great storytellers and the adventures they'd been through in the Great Depression and then in World War II and since then. And so he would make me write when we got back from these trips, he would make me do a write-up on the story and, tell a story in writing of what we did and what I heard and all of that. So I guess from an early age, I had an enjoyment and passion for writing, and I just wrote privately really all through my life. I started a little bit of a blog about 15 years ago, and had some people really encourage me to write a book. I still wonder sometimes if they were kind of ganging up and there was some conspiracy behind the scenes on trying to see how we can send Jeff into 10 years of torture. Because it took, close to 10 years. It wasn't my full-time or paying job, but it was my passion. And so I was inspired about 10 years ago when I remember the exact corner in Holly Springs. I was there doing a timber deal in the land business and had been thinking about different options for a book. And I was standing on this particular corner when the basic storyline hit and this main character, Big John. And then the other characters just started coming to me. Being in the land business for 30 years, I've been, small towns, suburbs, just all kinds of different people and real characters. And then growing up in a big Southern family, and also just people you've encountered through life. And so the basic storyline and some of these main characters came to me, and that's basically where the inspiration was. And so I've pretty passionately pursued the writing and rewriting of this novel over about an 8-year stretch.
Wow. Okay. And this is your first novel, and it's already being recognized. Tell me about the recognition. I mentioned off the top, USA Today has a national bestseller list. I didn't know that. Everyone refers to the New York Times bestseller, but
Yep.
Tell me about the recognition.
Yeah, that was something. I mean, last week we learned that this was before publication date was last Tuesday, and before that, based on pre-orders, we'd learned that we'd made Amazon bestseller list and Southern Fiction and some other things, and that was great news. And then we learned that we'd made the Barnes and Noble bestseller list, which was really good news. And then, we're really just pushing and pushing. I had a lot of people, a lot of friends and family help spread the word and buy books and just really thankful. Just learned today that there's 3 national, what are considered kind of national bestseller list. That's the New York Times, that's USA Today, and that's Publishers Weekly. And so we were, hoping for one or more of those, but I knew USA Today's list was 150 books, for the week, and that's all of fiction and nonfiction. But was very, very surprised and thankful to just learn about an hour ago that we not only made the list, but came in at number 20.
Fantastic. Congratulations to you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Give me some of the reactions that people have when they read this book.
That's a great point. I think some of the people, the authors, I was very fortunate to have some, New York Times, 2 New York Times bestselling authors, other national bestselling authors like David McGee, and then other, one of my best author friends, Jamie Cornegie, who great writer and published author, and went to Ole Miss, actually worked at Square Books in Oxford and owned his own bookstore. And he gave me a really nice review. I feel like, when they talk about a must read for fans of Southern lit, and they talk about this big, messy Southern family that they feel like they come to know. Those were some of I guess the characters have really, I guess the reviews that have so far come out on Amazon, for example, and Goodreads have emphasized, I think, to a good degree, the characters, these people. One of my hopes was always to write a book of substance with characters that become people who make you laugh, cry, and think. And I feel like based on the reviews, that's happening to an extent. I've been a little surprised by some of the reviews and comments. Like one says, compares it to a Grisham page turner. I never intended it to be a page turner, but I wanted the pages to turn. And I wanted it to be, again, a book that makes you, laugh, cry, and think, that hits the emotions and also the intellect, and with some of the issues and themes. And so, anyway, but what I had to work on the most over those years of writing and rewriting was the plot and the pacing and the craft. Not having been a quote professional writer and what have you, that the craft of structuring the plot, something that I had to work on. So I think the plot is, I'm getting really good reviews on that as well, which is surprising me a little bit. That's good, great news.
That's great news, Jeff. Tell me what's next for you.
Good question. I've got about 10 books kind of in a basic outline form. Obviously, you can't start on 10. I've started on, a couple of other ones. One would be a potential sequel. I left the door open for a sequel. I've got an outline and quite a bit on that. And then a couple of other books as well. I'm spending kind of right now, the focus is on marketing, and going to book signings. I'll be in Memphis at Novel Bookstore in July. I believe that's July 11th. It may be the 9th, but I think the 11th. So anyway, we'll be promoting this book, and then I would envision this fall starting another book, one of these other books I've been working on, but I'm not sure which one it'll be yet.
Gotcha. Well, Jeff Berry, once again, congratulations on your first novel here on the national bestseller list with USA Today. Go to Hell, Ole Miss. And, we're always proud when we see a native Memphian make it nationally. And so we're definitely proud of you and your success. Please keep us posted, and certainly keep me posted on the ongoings that you got going on.
Will do. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. All right, good morning, everyone. Andrew Douglas in the Action News 5 digital desk. Let's talk about the heat and some of the effects if we have various medical conditions. I'm joined now by Tosha Jackson. She's the Chief Nursing Officer at Methodist South. Thanks so much for joining us. Let's talk about some of the concerns and some of the dangers out there when you have outages that are that widespread, because right now there's about 100,000 homes and businesses without power, but also the prolonged effect of that, because it sounds like there's going to be some people that are going to be out of power for a significant time. What are you concerned about, Ms. Jackson?
And good morning. Thank you for having me on this morning. It is very concerning, especially if you have a medical condition that you don't have power. A lot of people have devices in their homes. My parents is one of them. They have medical devices in their home that they need power for in order to do day-to-day things. Now, I must say, call 911 if you're in any danger or any situation where you cannot get the medical help or use your medical device as needed. But there are other things you can do to actually help with that. Just go ahead and make sure you have plenty of supplies. I think we're predicting it may be a couple of days before the power may be restored in some areas. So just go ahead and call that medical company and get any supplies you may need that may last you a few days. But again, if there's a medical emergency, our emergency rooms are capable of handling any of the needs that you have. Go ahead and call 911 if you feel like that you cannot survive in this heat. It's going to be pretty hot, and some of our homes will heat up pretty quickly. So let's just make sure we are aware of our medical conditions first and then we can take care of everything else that we need to take care of in the household.
No question. So I know that in these type of situations, and we've had several over the last few years, unfortunately, what do you see the most coming into your hospital? Do you see people with perhaps some breathing issues? Are there other dangers, risks involved? What do you see the most when power is out for a significant period of time?
In our community, just here, especially in the Memphis and surrounding area, we unfortunately see frequent power outages. Heat exhaustion this time of year is probably our number one thing that we see. A lot of people do not realize that their homes are hot. It takes someone else to walk in and the heat to hit them in the face before they realize their home is hot. So if the elderly, please check on them, check on your neighbors, your church members, because a lot of times they do not feel heat like we feel heat. So heat exhaustion is probably the number one thing that we're seeing. As you stated, a lot of those patients that can't breathe, or their oxygen levels or their oxygen tanks begin to start to run low and they can't get out to go get their tanks filled. And we do not want anybody to be in a position where they do not have enough oxygen to last, through a couple of days. So please reach out to the emergency rooms. Now, you don't typically see those heart attacks, strokes, things like that, because that is common in everyday to day, but just those related to heat, you particularly see heat exhaustion and maybe low oxygen levels.
I see. Okay, yeah, because I would think that if some people are out for a significant period of time, those oxygen levels and those people that are on breathing medications or just breathing systems overall, they're going to need to go somewhere, perhaps your emergency room, in order to get the kind of help that they need. You mentioned heat exhaustion, probably the number one thing. I know that we've talked in the past to many different people about heat stroke. That's also a very dangerous thing. And I know that later this week we're supposed to get back in the triple-digit heat, something we saw yesterday before the storms. What else are you concerned about later today and this week?
Yeah, we want to make sure people are drinking enough water. In our Southern Belt, we love sweet tea, but sometimes the added caffeine, sometimes with the extra coffee, when the added caffeine can cause more dehydration statuses. Alcohol, of course, should be avoided during this time. And simply just having a glass of water, keeping water nearby, hydrating and staying hydrated is the most important advice any medical expert can give during this time. And hopefully, even with the electricity out, everyone still have access to water. If not, bottled water is an option. If you don't have access to water, we do have our Methodist facilities at every location, any part of town. You have Methodist South, Methodist North University, as well as Germantown, as well as our LeBonner Children's Hospital and the Olive Branch Hospital, where you can go, even if you just need water, we'll be available to help supply those needs to the community.
So you mentioned heat exhaustion, hydration. We talked about breathing, and a lot of it is focused on some of the most vulnerable in our community. Of course, the elderly. But what about children? What are some of the concerns that we have with children, particularly small ones, maybe infants or little babies?
Yeah, a lot of times children may not be as affected as adults, just because they are pretty much active. They are pretty much drinkers of milk, water all the time as their main substance. So a lot of times children, unless they're just running constantly in the heat. Now, mind you, you do want to make sure they stay cool. You want to make sure they do not overheat, especially our little babies. We don't want to leave them in hot cars. We don't want to leave them behind. Make sure we're checking for them if we are going to be in cars, because this time of year, we know a car can heat up very quickly, and we don't want to leave our children in cars. But in the home, you can pretty much open windows, but keep the blinds closed, keep any drapes, curtains, or anything like that closed. Yes, you still want to give popsicles or anything like that the kids may have to help hydrate. They may not dehydrate as quickly as your elderly who are not drinking enough fluids.
Okay, well, listen, Tosha Jackson, we really appreciate you, Chief Nursing Officer, Methodist South Hospital. Thanks so much for your insight. We really appreciate it this morning.
Thank you for having me. Have a good day.
thanks for joining us here on the Action News 5 Digital Desk here on a Monday. It's going to be a hot and toasty one across the Mid-South. Of course, a heat advisory in effect here today because of the heat and humidity combination. Actual air temperature today in the mid-90s, but it's going to operate much hotter than that. The summer heat stress elevated, especially across portions of east central Arkansas, northwest Mississippi here today. I think everybody's going to be dealing with the heat stress. That's not going to be the thing that we're going to have just pockets where it's not going to be the problem. I think it's just going to be a little bit more elevated here, where feels like temperatures in these locations could very well crest closer to about 110 degrees in some instances in places like Marianna, up towards Forest City, Helena, West Helena, Clarksdale, Marks, as well as Tunica. Most other locations near 100 to 105 degrees in West Tennessee and northern portions of Mississippi. And unfortunately, this will probably be the case even going into your Tuesday as well. Of course, with the summer heat cranking up across the Mid-South, a reminder to drink plenty of hydrating fluids, wear light, loose-fitting clothing, take plenty of breaks in the shade or indoors, and checking in on folks, just being neighborly in this situation when it comes down to the heat, checking in on folks who may not have adequate access to cooling relief, and also your pets. Make sure they have cool drinking water, clean drinking water, and of course, just replenishing that because, of course, you need to drink plenty of water. They need to drink plenty of water as well. Let's go hour by hour with our first alert futurecast. For today, of course, it's going to be the heat and humidity bubbling up with the daytime heating. A few clouds, maybe an isolated shower, but many spots will likely remain dry here today. Highs middle to upper 90s. Tonight will drop into the 70s to near 80 degrees. I wouldn't be surprised if in the city we are still sitting like this morning, hovering right around 80 degrees when you wake up early tomorrow morning. Through the day on Tuesday, it's going to be more sunshine, but here's the thing. A few downpours may bubble up with the daytime heating as we get towards the afternoon hours. Give you a first alert to that. Of course, this time of the year, we're talking about the potential for those bubbled up downpours in random locations at random times. And of course, it will be during the peak heating. They'll cool you off, but those heavy downpours may put down a quick 1/4 of an inch of rainfall as well. And in its wake, yeah, the sun will come back out, but it'll be pretty steamy directly after that. Highs tomorrow topping out in the upper 90s. Here comes a frontal boundary dropping into the area. I'll give you a first alert to this. This will bring us a little better chance for rain and storms and maybe slightly cooler air for a brief moment in time. It's not going to be very much, though. The showers and storms, at least initially, will start to fade away as that first band drops southward. The showers and storms will kind of taper off in coverage. But there's still going to be some widely spaced downpours in a few spots, and this is going to be the launch point for more downpours to develop during the afternoon and evening hours. Some of these downpours that are able to develop in the afternoon period of your Wednesday could be quite heavy, maybe a strong storm or two with some gusty winds, frequent lightning, small hail, not completely out of the realm of possibility. That will continue to drop southward along the front and will clear things out just in time for your Thursday, but we have to get to that point first. One way to stay up to date anytime and everywhere is on the Action News 5 First Alert Weather app. Download it in the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. Upon the 7-day, we'll go 96 for today, 98 for Tuesday. I put the rain chance around 20% for Tuesday. The reason why is because those downpours that are able to bubble up on Tuesday may be a little bit more prevalent in a few spots, but when they do come down, yeah, it could be a little heavy. The better chances for more widespread opportunities for rain will be Wednesday. A reminder, Wednesday is not going to be an all-day rain. It will not rain all day. But when the rain is coming down, it could come down heavily. It could be a strong storm or two. And there's a little better chance for more folks to see rain. I don't think everybody will see rain, though, on Wednesday. Some spots will stay completely dry. That is the feast or famine type of situation that you have to tangle with during the summer months. Drier by Thursday, Friday. I think we're low 90s Thursday, mid 90s on Friday, middle 90s again on Saturday, maybe upper 90s in a few spots. Low 90s again Sunday, and maybe a little better chance for some rain and storms to return as a frontal boundary, another one, approaches the region. But the general trend here is hot, it's humid. Welcome to summer, my friends. It's not changing anytime soon.
Okay, Andrew Douglas in the Action News 5 digital desk. Let's talk about the weekend. First off, we can always talk about the weekend, right? I mean, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, doesn't matter. We want to talk about the weekend. And this weekend, the unofficial start of summer. It is Memorial Day weekend. And man, oh man, if you have plans, even if you don't have plans, you always want to be outside for a good portion of it to maybe do some grilling, hang out with family and friends, and you got to worry about certain things, though, as we approach the summer months, as we approach Memorial Day weekend. Let's bring in Regina Goulder. She's a nurse practitioner with Methodist Le Bonheur Healthcare. Regina, good morning to you. Tell me from your perspective, the number one thing that people need to keep top of mind as we head into Memorial Day weekend. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Happy Memorial Day weekend. Okay, number one thing is safety. We're all looking out to be safe this weekend. Summer is here. It's going to be warm. We got to start looking into grilling safety, keeping cool while we're outside working in our yard and our gardens for many of the people around here that have gardens, boating and pool safety, and of course, health safety as well.
Yeah, there's a lot there. I mean, we're talking about several different things because people like to, obviously Memorial Day weekend is where we honor those who have worn the uniform and have died. But, a lot of people look at it as the unofficial start of summer. So there's people that are maybe boating out on the lake, swimming in the pool. There's also grilling, grilling some food outside, maybe some fireworks as well. And so and safety, of course, is top of mind. Where do people often get in trouble? I guess one of the things that I think of right off the bat when I think of my kids is sun exposure and heat exposure, and also like sunburns and stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me start with heat stroke warnings, because that's going to be big with people working in the yard. A lot of people use this long weekend to get their flower beds in order. So signs of heat stroke would include headache, nausea, lightheadedness, confusion. You sweat profusely, but then you'll stop sweating. So that's important to realize that if you have been sweating and then you stop sweating, you need to hydrate more. If you've been outside in the heat and you start feeling any of these, it's important to seek medical attention, because you will probably need fluids and hydration and medical watch after that. The other thing is wearing sunscreen. I know we preach about sunscreen with skin cancer, but it is very important to protect our skin. Even on overcast days, you need to be wearing sunscreen with SPF of at least 45 to 50 on your face, shoulders, all sensitive areas. Wearing hats are a good idea when you're outside to prevent the sunlight from directly hitting you in the eyes and the face. As far as pool safety, that's always big this weekend because a lot of people have opened their pools. So we want to make sure that children aren't unattended and that they're wearing proper life vest and that they're worn correctly. And this goes for boating safety too, making sure that everybody is wearing the proper life vest and that they're buttoned correctly, that our smaller toddlers have a button under their legs. This is very important in the lake to make sure that is buttoned. And so, as I say, attention to children, because a lot of times we get distracted with grilling and friends and we're not watching appropriately. So keeping all eyes and toward the water is something to do for sure.
Okay, now let's switch gears here and talk about the student debt spotlight. So we are joined now by Amanda Haynell. She's Vice President, Head of Student Debt Retirement at Fidelity Investments. We know, Amanda, good morning. I appreciate you joining us. We know that when it comes to student debt, we're talking about 32 million Americans facing repayment this summer. That's data from Fidelity. Tell me what and when are federal student loan payments resuming and the impact in all this? Good morning.
Good morning. Tens of millions of Americans are going to be faced with student debt repayments for the first time in 3 years. Federal payments have been paused since the beginning of the pandemic in 2020. And as families are going to adjust their budgets to make room for these, which will resume later this summer, it's going to be about the size of an extra car payment added back in. So we know families are going to have to take a minute and resume thinking about these payments and readjusting their budgets in a really big way.
So how can they prepare for this? I mean, it's so we're out of the pandemic now. How can they prepare to repay some of their student loans, get on that track to repayment?
Absolutely. They can do three things. The first one is to get organized. We know a lot of folks haven't been thinking about their student debt during this pause. And during the time where they haven't been looking, their loan service provider may have changed. They may not know any longer how much their payments actually are or what their interest rates are. Collecting this information can help them make a plan and to make sure that they have the right repayment options. If they're not sure how to do any of this, they can visit fidelity.com/student-debt-help for a little more information about how to get that action item. The second one is once they have a great plan, they should test it. Before that first bill comes due, make sure that you can actually put the money aside. And if you have any issues with it, you can revise your plan now before it's too late. The third thing folks can do is ask for a little more help. They can talk with their employers and see if they have a budget or a benefit that already exists in order to offer them some student debt help.
Yeah, I was going to ask because, I mean, employers have to be somewhat affected by all this. How are they addressing the student debt problem, Amanda?
Yeah, employers are definitely impacted by this. When you're stressed, your employer feels it. So they're doing two major things. The first one is offering a direct repayment towards student debt. So they're actually helping their employees pay student debt and getting at the heart of the issue there. The second one is they're taking advantage of recent legislative changes that allow employers to make matches into a retirement plan based on the payments that student debt their employers are already making. Both ways are game changers for employers to really say, how can we help release some of this burden on student debt for you?
Okay, an interesting topic for sure, Amanda. Where can we go to get some more information online?
Yeah, and go to fidelity.com/student-debt-help.
Okay, Amanda Haenel, Vice President, Head of Student Debt Retirement, Fidelity Investments. We appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Andrew Douglas here in the Action News 5 digital desk. We have a serious heat wave going on here, not only in Memphis and the Mid-South, but it's happening all across the country. Dangerous triple-digit heat for tens of millions of Americans. And the Alzheimer's Foundation of America is providing important tips in order to help families out there that are affected by Alzheimer's disease and other dementia-related illnesses to keep their loved ones safe. Let's bring in Jennifer Reeder, our Director of Educational and Social Services, to talk to us about the best ways, the best methods to keep families with dementia family members safe. Jennifer, good morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing well. So right off the bat, tell us how this might be a little bit different than your typical family.
Sure. So I think what we need to remember is that as we are all getting older, it can be a lot more difficult for our body to be able to regulate our body temperature. So we can be much more susceptible to heat exhaustion, heat stroke. And for individuals with dementia, as the disease is progressing, it can become more and more difficult to not only be able to communicate with others, but to be able to identify when our body is in distress. So it's going to be more difficult for the individual to potentially identify when they're experiencing heat exhaustion or heat stroke.
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, my dad has Alzheimer's, and so I visited him. He's 91, and there was a moment where I took him out, you know, in a wheelchair, took him outside just to get some fresh air. Of course, it was very hot. We went into the shade, but you know, it's important to make sure that they're hydrated and staying cool on top of all that, right? What other tips do you have?
Yeah, we always want to, you know, keep the individual hydrated as well as ourselves. You know, we want to, and I think a lot of people think like, oh, the shade is going to be much better, but it's also just about the temperature of the air. It's not just about the sun exposure. And so we need to be very considerate of how long we are just outside during during this time of very high temperatures. And then we also want to think about wearing very loose clothing as well. Anything to be able to keep ourselves cooler.
Yeah, and then it's always my understanding is it's always good to have a plan. You know, okay, I'm going to go visit, and we're going to do this, this, and this, just to make sure everything is a-okay.
Yeah, and you always want to think about where cooling stations may be, where places are that have air conditioning. That's a part of your plan, because we really shouldn't be out there for very long.
What else can we tell the public here?
You know, I think it's always important too to remember that if an individual is unable to go outside, you know, that lack of stimulation can be very difficult for the person, and they may want to go outside. So we want to be able to be sure that if we are remaining inside, that we still have activities going on. We're still stimulating the individual physically, mentally, socially. And if anybody ever needs any tips on what to do, they can always reach out to our helpline. We have a national toll-free helpline that's staffed by all licensed social workers who are thoroughly trained in dementia care and can help to provide that guidance and those suggestions that may be helpful for the family and the individual. So they can reach our helpline at 866-232-8484.
And then I guess we always have to watch out for hypothermia, heat stroke, heat exhaustion, because those are things that can really creep up on anybody, dementia or not.
Yeah, exactly. If anybody appears to be heavy sweating, cold, clammy skin, the individual is starting to look very exhausted or nauseous, these are all signs of heat exhaustion or potentially heat stroke.
Okay, Jennifer Reeder, I appreciate it. Thanks so much for joining us, and take care of yourself.
Thank you so much.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Action News 5 Digital Desk. I'm Andrew Douglas. The U.S. only makes up about 4.4% of the world's population, but it consumes 80% of the world's opioids. Mothers Against Prescription Drug Abuse, in partnership with Aleve, have launched a campaign. It's called The Painful Truth, and it encourages consumers to explore non-addictive pain relief options with their doctor before considering opioids. Now, joining us to discuss this very important issue, because we all know the opioid epidemic has done a number on us here in Tennessee, Mississippi, and Arkansas. I'm joined now by Mary Bono, former Congresswoman and co-founder of the Mothers Against Prescription Drug Abuse. Also joined now by Matt Robinson, a voice from the Painful Truth campaign. Good morning to you both. Mary, let's begin with you and tell me about how this initiative first began. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, this initiative began by us wanting to educate the American public about something like, approximately every 30 minutes in the United States, we lose somebody to a prescription opioid overdose. And we want people to understand that the use of opioids carries some significant risks like addiction, abuse, or potential loss of life. Also important to know that for some reason, more opioids are prescribed in the United States than anywhere in the entire world. It's also important for people to know if they do take a prescription opioid to manage pain, there is a possibility that they could become addicted.
Yeah, there's so many parts in this country that have been ravaged by the opioid epidemic, and no question our area here in Tennessee, Mississippi, and Arkansas certainly has felt the brunt of that opioid epidemic. Matt, over to you. Can you share with us your first-hand experience with opioids?
Yeah, you bet. I was first introduced to prescription opioids after an injury. I was a football player, big in Tennessee, Arkansas. I'm in Texas, so all boys play football, and I broke my leg. First introduced to the drug then, and I was always getting hurt. I had subsequent injuries, back injuries, things like that. And I was treating pain in the beginning, but at some point I wasn't just treating pain anymore. I was chasing an addiction. When I stopped taking the medication, I would go into severe withdrawal. I'd get really sick if I didn't have it. And then you become everything you swore you'd never be. You're looking in the mirror, you don't recognize the person looking back at you, and you're completely lost.
I appreciate you opening up and sharing with us here on the Digital Desk. And unfortunately, that story and your story is so common and so prevalent in so many different communities across America. Mary, back over to you. Tell me what Mothers Against Prescription Drug Abuse is doing right now to address this issue that is hurting so many parts of our country.
Well, we've been focused on drug abuse prevention and awareness for over a decade now. But right now, this campaign, we're especially pleased to be presenting. It is, again, this topic, and it is how do we take ownership of our own pain management? We're trying to encourage people to understand the potential consequences of prescription opioids. And we're just telling people, talk to your doctor, talk to your healthcare practitioner. If you need some pain management medication, have a conversation if there are alternatives to addictive opioids. We're really pleased that Matt is the star of this film. He has lived experience and he resonates with people as they're seeking their own pain management journey on what they ought to do. And it's a cautionary tale. And again, it comes back to this can happen to anyone.
Yeah, no question. This affects everybody, regardless of socioeconomic background. Mary and Matt, this next question is for you. And Mary, we can begin with you. How can patients choose and advocate for pain-related management that is non-addictive, non-opioid based?
Well, Andrew, you said so well too, is there's no denying any longer that there is a crisis in America, a crisis of addiction, and it's beyond just prescription drugs, but we are focused on what a patient can do. Again, talking to their doctor. We're very lucky that in this day and age, there are some great, very effective alternatives. Some are over the counter or some are sort of more of other sort of therapies. But there are options out there. And I think we're trying to raise that awareness that patients should simply have that conversation with a doctor about what are my options to keep me off of potentially addictive prescription opioids.
Matt, over to you.
Yeah, I agree with that. Absolutely. Mary said it there. It's the name of the game is to discuss options. When I was going through this personally, there wasn't even a conversation about this. I was given a prescription and I filled it. I didn't think much about it. If I had to talk to someone today, I would tell them to discuss their options because what happened to me could happen to anybody. Addiction doesn't discriminate. And most people that fall into this trap that I fell into are just trying to treat pain. We're not trying to get high. We're not trying to become addicts. No one signs up for this life, but it's a real possibility with these drugs, with these medications. So the name of the game is options. Let's talk about what other options are out there, whether they're over the counter or holistic methods of treatment that aren't going to result in a decade of addiction like I went through.
Well, Matt and Mary, thank you so much for coming on the Action News 5 Digital Desk. We have thousands of people watching each and every morning here. Final thoughts and ways that people can maybe find some more information about this campaign online. Mary?
Well, we'd love for you to join us at Aleve.com/thepainfultruth.
Anything else, Matt?
No, thanks for having us. This is a really important message to get out there, and it's an honor. I can speak for Mary as well to be here and discuss this.
Well, thank you so much. It takes a lot of courage, Matt, to come up and tell your story. And Mary, thank you for all that you do. And we appreciate both of you taking the courage and the fight against opioids, not only where you are and where you guys live, but across this country. And certainly we need all the help we can get. Thank you both. You've probably heard it before when it comes to not getting enough sleep. You know, we're supposed to get anywhere from 7 to 9 hours of sleep each night, but due to stress, alcohol, caffeine, and technology, that can all contribute to a poor night's sleep. And a recent survey found that itch is the #1 frustration that impacts sleep for adults and sometimes those kiddos of ours. They also, their eczema also flares up as well. We want to talk about all of this right now with Dr. John Browning. He's a pediatric dermatologist. He is joining us on the digital desk. And John, good morning to you. Tell us what some of the biggest challenges that people are facing when it comes to sleep, when it comes to eczema, that sort of thing. Good morning.
Well, good morning. Thank you, Andrew, for having me. And yes, I'm so glad you brought up skin as being another cause of sleep disturbance, because what we found is that the itch from atopic dermatitis or eczema can indeed wake you up at night. And as a parent of 2 kids with atopic dermatitis and as a pediatric dermatologist, I'm not surprised to learn about this finding, although I was surprised to know that 76% of patients indeed had complaints of sleep disturbance from their itchy atopic dermatitis. And, you know, we've got enough reasons to keep us up at night. We certainly don't need to have our skin be another one of those reasons.
100% agree with you. I have a family member as well that has eczema, but I didn't realize a lack of sleep causes it to flare up. Is that, in fact, the case?
Well, you know, really, it's actually the flare that causes the lack of sleep. So, you know, out of the blue, they may have a flare. We don't always have one reason that causes that flare. It can be a change in the weather. It can be something that touches their skin, or, you know, sometimes in the summer we'll see heat and sweat do it, but they can wake up in the middle of the night. And if you've got young kids who have eczema and you go in their rooms at night, sometimes you see them just fidgeting around, scratching even in their sleep. And then they wake up. And I remember when my kids were little and they would often wake up at night flared, and, you know, sometimes you give them some medicine like Benadryl to help them sleep, but that's often inadequate. And we've had many vacations where we've had problems because we've had the atopic dermatitis flare and haven't been prepared for that.
So what causes eczema, and what's the best treatment for it?
That's a really great question. And so, you know, at the end of the day, there's not really one cause of atopic dermatitis. And sometimes I have patients that come and see me and they just want to be tested. They just want some kind of test. You know, please tell me, what is it? What's causing my eczema? Why does my kid have it? Is there a food out there? Is there something in the air? And, unfortunately, it's multifactorial. So even though there are things that can aggravate your atopic dermatitis, at the end of the day, it's really two big reasons why they have it. Number one, you've got an impaired skin barrier, and that's just genetic. You're born with skin that dries out. It doesn't hold moisture like it should. Different things irritate it. And then your immune system goes into overdrive, and it causes redness, it causes swelling, it causes cracks. That's where the itch comes into play. Sometimes you have bleeding on your sheets at night from scratching while you're sleeping. So those are the two reasons. And there's not one thing only that causes it.
I've noticed sometimes with my specific family member that a certain diet can help alleviate some of that itching. Is that what you experience? Would you recommend someone with eczema have a certain diet in order to keep it under control? What do you think?
People ask me about that all the time, and I always tell them, absolutely, good diet is always important. You want to have a healthy diet. You want to avoid those processed foods. You want to avoid things that are gonna, make your insulin spike. You want to be healthy. So I think it's very important to remind people that healthy diet and healthy sleep are both really important for atopic dermatitis. And I have partnered with Dermavant Sciences, and I'm happy to raise awareness about the survey with these findings of sleep disturbances and some of the things that patients are experiencing who have atopic dermatitis. So you might consider visiting our website, dermavant.com/sleep itch survey, where you can learn more about some of those symptoms and some of the other things associated with atopic dermatitis.
I appreciate that info, Doctor. What about any other major takeaways that we can tell our audience right now when it comes to research and studies on this topic?
Yeah, great question. I think, for one thing, folks should know that there shouldn't be a stigma associated with atopic dermatitis. It's not contagious. Unfortunately, it's very visible. So people see it. If it's on your hands, they feel it. But they should know it's not contagious. There shouldn't be a stigma. They can talk to their doctor. They can have, learn about their options for treating it. They should definitely visit the website, dermavant.com/sleep itch survey, so they can learn more about it, as well as what their different options might be moving on in the future.
Okay, Dr. John Browning, we really appreciate you coming on the digital desk to talk about this eczema and how it can lead to a lack of sleep for so many millions of Americans out there. Thanks so very much, and we appreciate it. Good morning. Welcome back to the Action News 5 Digital Desk. I want to talk about a very important issue, seniors facing loneliness. And here's the thing, it is detrimental to their health, physically, mentally. It leads to all kinds of general well-being issues, but there are ways to overcome that loneliness, and volunteering may be the answer. Let's bring in a couple of women to talk more about this issue. I'm joined now by Atalia Sergi, AmeriCorps Senior Director, and Shelley Brosnan, a volunteer. Ladies, thank you for joining us. Let's begin first with Atalia. Good morning to you. Can you tell me how bad this issue is when it comes to seniors and loneliness? Good morning.
Good morning. The U.S. Surgeon General has released a report that shares with us that we are in the midst of a loneliness epidemic. And loneliness and isolation can have far-reaching impacts on a person's health and well-being. For older adults specifically, social isolation and loneliness can contribute to depression and anxiety. The report does have some good news in it. The biggest takeaway is the impact that social connections can make, and volunteering with like-minded other adults getting out into the community can really increase the social connections for older adults. And that can help improve mental, physical, and cognitive health.
Yeah, I totally see how this could happen. Of course, we talk a lot here at Action News 5 about how social connections are so critical for so many people, especially our seniors out there. Tell me more about how volunteering can really help bridge the gap, I guess you could say.
Yeah, so AmeriCorps is the federal agency for national service and volunteerism. And AmeriCorps seniors, we focus on adults that are 55 years of age and older, engaging them in service, helping them to make those connections through our 3 signature programs. We have the RSVP program, the foster grandparent program, and the senior companion program. And so it really helps them to get out in the community, to make connections, to find purpose. And those connections become really important. So Shelley, who is here with me today, has been an RSVP volunteer since 2016, and she really values those connections that she has made through her volunteerism.
Yeah, Shelley, over to you. I'd like to just kind of dive in a little bit to what was just said. I mean, volunteering from your perspective, because I understand you're a volunteer, what have you seen?
I think it makes a big difference. It makes a big difference in my life. It's very important for me, but I also feel that I know that I'm giving back to my community in a very purposeful way. I'm helping seniors that might not be able to get to medical appointments or get groceries, have a chance to be able to do that. They maybe don't have family around, or they're not driving anymore. They can now get to those appointments and get to the grocery store because of volunteers who are out there helping them. And it's a real, I think volunteering it's kind of a win-win situation, because it does as much for me, for my life, as it does for the person that I'm helping. And there's so many ways to give back. You can commit as much time as you would like to volunteering. I do about 10 hours a week, and I still have time to travel, read, exercise, visit with my family and friends, and I've made a lot of friends. So it's widened my social circle through volunteering. I've made friends, and we get together outside of volunteering, but we also see each other at volunteer events. So we build up each other's lives also, along with helping our community.
That's fantastic. I appreciate you sharing with us. I agree, volunteering can do wonders for both the person who volunteers and the organization or the people who benefit. I just wanted to ask, Atalia, back over to you. Tell me how AmeriCorps is involved. I mean, we have thousands of people that watch us each and every morning here on the digital desk. If they see this and they want to help out through AmeriCorps, for example, what's the best method to do that?
So we have our 3 signature programs. RSVP, as Shelley has shared, has flexible scheduling, a variety of things you can do. The Foster Grandparent Program connects volunteers with children and youth to help support them with their academic development. And then our Senior Companion Program provides volunteers the opportunity to give a helping hand to other older adults and those with disabilities, and to support caregivers. So in your area, we have a foster grandparent program, and they support children to develop their literacy skills. They help children who are struggling with their social emotional development. And they also are working alongside early childhood educators. So we have a pilot program where older adults are working in those early childhood centers and have the opportunity, if they want, to become an early childhood assistant. So there are many opportunities. And if you want to learn more, go to AmeriCorps.gov/yourmoment. It'll take you to our website. You can find volunteer opportunities. You can find a little bit more about each of the programs I mentioned.
Okay, Talia Surgery and Shelley Brosnan, we really appreciate your time this morning. Thank you so much for letting us know about this issue that is currently facing our seniors out there and ways to overcome it. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
You've probably heard it before when it comes to not getting enough sleep. You know, we're supposed to get anywhere from 7 to 9 hours of sleep each night, but due to stress, alcohol, caffeine, and technology, that can all contribute to a poor night's sleep. And a recent survey found that itch is the #1 frustration that impacts sleep for adults. And sometimes those kiddos of ours, they also, their eczema also flares up as well. We want to talk about all of this right now with Dr. John Browning. He's a pediatric dermatologist. He is joining us on the digital desk. And John, good morning to you. Tell us what some of the biggest challenges that people are facing when it comes to sleep, when it comes to eczema, that sort of thing. Good morning.
Well, good morning. Thank you, Andrew, for having me. And yes, I'm so glad you brought up skin as being another cause of sleep disturbance, because what we found is that the itch from atopic dermatitis or eczema can indeed wake you up at night. And as a parent of 2 kids with atopic dermatitis and as a pediatric dermatologist, I'm not surprised to learn about this finding, although I was surprised to know that 76% of patients indeed had complaints of sleep disturbance from their itchy atopic dermatitis. And, you know, we've got enough reasons to keep us up at night. We certainly don't need to have our skin be another one of those reasons.
100% agree with you. I have a family member as well that has eczema, but I didn't realize a lack of sleep causes it to flare up. Is that, in fact, the case?
Well, you know, really, it's actually the flare that causes the lack of sleep. So, you know, out of the blue, they may have a flare. We don't always have one reason that causes that flare. It can be a change in the weather. It can be something that touches their skin, or, you know, sometimes in the summer we'll see heat and sweat do it, but they can wake up in the middle of the night. And if you've got young kids who have eczema and you go in their rooms at night, sometimes you see them just fidgeting around, scratching even in their sleep. And then they wake up. And I remember when my kids were little and they would often wake up at night flared, and, you know, sometimes you give them some medicine like Benadryl to help them sleep, but that's often inadequate. And we've had many vacations where we've had problems because we've had the atopic dermatitis flare and haven't been prepared for that.
So what causes eczema, and what's the best treatment for it?
That's a really great question. And so, you know, at the end of the day, there's not really one cause of atopic dermatitis. And sometimes I have patients that come and see me and they just want to be tested. They just want some kind of test. You know, please tell me, what is it? What's causing my eczema? Why does my kid have it? Is there food out there? Is there something in the air? And, you know, unfortunately, it's multifactorial. So even though there are things that can aggravate your atopic dermatitis, at the end of the day, it's really 2 big reasons why they have it. Number 1, you've got an impaired skin barrier, and that's just genetic. You're born with skin that dries out. it doesn't hold moisture like it should, different things irritate it. And then your immune system goes into overdrive and it causes redness, it causes swelling, it causes cracks. That's where the itch comes into play. You know, sometimes you have bleeding on your sheets at night from scratching while you're sleeping. So those are the two reasons. And there's not, one thing only that causes it.
I've noticed sometimes with my specific family member that a certain diet can help alleviate some of that itching. Is that what you experience? Would you recommend someone with eczema have a certain diet in order to, keep it under control? What do you think?
People ask me about that all the time, and I always tell them, absolutely, good diet is always important. You want to have a healthy diet. You want to avoid those processed foods. You want to avoid things that are gonna, make your insulin spike. You want to be healthy. So I think it's very important to remind people that healthy diet and healthy sleep are both really important for atopic dermatitis. And I have partnered with Dermavant Sciences, and I'm happy to raise awareness about the survey with these findings of sleep disturbances and some of the things that patients are experiencing who have atopic dermatitis. So you might consider visiting our website, dermavant.com/sleep itch survey, where you can learn more about some of those symptoms and some of the other things associated with atopic dermatitis.
I appreciate that info, Doctor. What about any other major takeaways that we can tell our audience right now when it comes to research and studies on this topic?
Yeah, great question. I think, for one thing, folks should know that there shouldn't be a stigma associated with atopic dermatitis. It's not contagious. Unfortunately, it's very visible. So people see it. If it's on your hands, they feel it. But they should know it's not contagious. There shouldn't be a stigma. They can talk to their doctor. They can have, learn about their options for treating it. They should definitely visit the website, dermavant.com/sleep itch survey, so they can learn more about it, as well as what their different options might be moving on in the future.
Okay, Dr. John Browning, we really appreciate you coming on the digital desk to talk about this eczema and how it can lead to a lack of sleep for so many millions of Americans out there. Thanks so very much, and we appreciate it. Good morning. Welcome back to the Action News 5 digital desk. Let's talk a little bit about pickleball. We've talked about how it is the fastest growing sport in the U.S. right now. There has been a report released, 36.5 million people have played pickleball at least once in the last year. That's 14% of the adult population. But here's the thing, with all these people playing pickleball, in some of those games, and some of those matches are very competitive. I've seen it firsthand. There are injuries associated with pickleball. In fact, Memphis's own Campbell Clinic just released the first and only study of its kind talking about the most common injuries when it comes to pickleball. Let's talk to someone who knows a little bit about this recent study. I have the pleasure now to join, to have Dr. Fred Azar, Chief of Staff of Campbell Clinic, joining us on the Action News 5 digital desk. Dr. Azar, always good to see you. How are things at Campbell Clinic? Good morning.
Great to see you. Thanks for having me. Everything's
Appreciate
great.
you being here. So let's talk about this first of its kind study that really kind of dives deep into some of the most common injuries associated with pickleball?
So we noticed a few years ago that we had some patients coming in with these pickleball injuries, and there was a little bit of a pattern. People in their 50s, 60s, and 70s were coming in with injuries, and we felt like there was a need to make them aware that these injuries could happen playing pickleball. So we looked around the literature, and there was really not much in the literature to educate our patients. So we decided to do this study. We wanted to, first of all, review the literature to see what was out there. And secondly, we launched a survey so we could get our patients to participate in this survey to give us information that we could provide broadly. So we published this study. It's not published yet, but it's been accepted for publication. It'll be out soon. It's got information on raising the awareness of pickleball injuries, review the literature, and also we've included our survey with some information there on some recommendations on how to avoid injuries.
So let's talk about some of the most common injuries that you saw in this study when it came to pickleball.
So we found that we've had so far have over 500 participants. This is our survey, not the Royal Literature, but it's pretty much in sync with what's out there in the literature. About 55% were women, 45% men, and 2/3 were more than 55 years of age. The majority of injuries are soft tissue injuries, meniscal tears, tendonitis like Achilles tendonitis or rotator cuff tendonitis, back strains, ankle sprains are pretty common. About 40% were fractures, the most common being wrist fractures from falls, usually backwards when attempting to go back to make a shot.
Got it. Are there maybe some best practices? We have so many people that love pickleball. Are there maybe some best practices out there to try and prevent some of these injuries, doctor?
Certainly, the number one thing is awareness you can get hurt. This is a sport that's relatively new, just raising the awareness for that. Certainly warming up is really important. You want to be able to warm up and cool down properly, just like you do with any sport. You need proper equipment, so shoe wear is really important. Running shoes aren't great for it. A tennis shoe is better, it's a more low-profile shoe. Some people want to brace a knee or an ankle if they've got an ailment. That's important to do. And also really moderation and cross-training. It's not great to play this sport 5 days a week, 3 hours at a time. You're going to come in with some overuse injury. Hydration is really important too. We actually found that, and I don't mean alcohol, we found that 6% of participants, at least in our survey, were consuming alcohol while playing the sport. So it's really important to think about hydrating, but not in that respect. It's a pretty social sport, but hydrating without alcohol is a pretty good way to go. And then really play to your level. Don't try and play somebody who's going to be a lot tougher than you competition-wise. Play to your level. Listen to your body. So if you think you've got something brewing, step aside and let somebody else play.
Alcohol during pickleball, that sounds crazy and scary and something that no one should be able to do. I mean, because
it's not like golf.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on there. I mean, where I work out at my gym, there are pickleball courts, and they're always packed, and there are some fierce games. And in your part of the Memphis Mid-South area, I mean, you've seen all these pickleball courts going up everywhere. I mean, it is growing fast across the country and here in the U.S. Some people think it's an older person's sport, but I'm seeing everybody, young, old, all demographics playing this sport. Anything else you'd like to share, Dr. Azar, about this to maybe kind of minimize anyone getting hurt?
Well, you're right. It started out as an older person sport, but now everybody's playing it. I think that the important thing for us is to bring awareness to patients and people that are playing the sport that you can become injured. And raising that awareness we think is really important. And then giving some information on how we can do to prevent injuries. That's what we're all about, injury prevention. And people that want to participate in our survey, go to campbellclinic.com. You can click on the link to the survey. We're trying to get more information out there so we can build a survey and we can advance the knowledge of this sports to all people who are participating in it.
Okay, so 500 participants, a part of this study, and you said, is it posted right now on campbellclinic.com so our viewers can see for themselves?
The survey's available. The publication will be out soon, and we'll have that link too. But we want people to participate in the survey. Again, we've got over 500 people so far. We want to add to that survey.
Got it. All right, Dr. Fred Azar, Campbell Clinic Chief of Staff. Really appreciate your time on the digital desk. Feel free to come on any other time to keep us up to date on whatever's happening, pickleball or not. Thanks so very much. Good morning. Welcome back to the Action News 5 Digital Desk. I'm Andrew Douglas. America is getting older. We know about this. In fact, 4 million people, more than 4 million people in the U.S. will celebrate their 65th birthday alone. Turning 65, of course, significant for many reasons. One, perhaps marks the beginning of a new healthcare journey with Medicare. And experts say planning before you hit and before you're eligible can have a positive impact on your health for years to come. Let's talk more about this topic with Dr. Jennifer Taylor, Senior Medical Director at Humana. Dr. Taylor, good morning to you. So what advice would you give someone who's turning 65 this year?
Good morning. There's a few things. The first thing I would say is to start your research now, because it's important to understand the different parts of Medicare. For example, Original Medicare offers coverage for hospital stays and doctor's visits. There's a deductible for each, and you're responsible for 20% of the cost. Whereas Medicare Advantage covers hospital visits, doctor's visits, ER visits, and it can cover prescription drugs as well at no extra cost. Plus, there's a yearly cap on out-of-pocket fees.
All right, so we know that primary care plays a significant role when it comes to managing our health, but a significant number of Americans right now do not have a primary care doctor. For seniors who don't have a primary care doctor, what considerations would you recommend?
Having a primary care doctor that knows you, knows your health history and your own personal risk factors can make a huge difference in terms of your longevity and your quality of life. So your insurance provider can help you find a doctor within your network that accepts your plan. At Humana, we encourage our Medicare Advantage members to select a doctor that's involved in value-based care. Because with value-based care, your doctor has more frequent visits with you, and those visits are longer. So this gives you a chance to ask more questions. It gives your doctor the chance to get to know you better, and it gives your doctor the opportunity to know the social and emotional things that make you you, and those things that might impact your health.
So what would you say are the most important things for younger seniors, what they can do in order to stay healthy, doctor?
Well, once you've found your primary care physician, schedule an annual wellness visit, because this is your opportunity to sit down with your doctor and go over all the screenings that are available and which ones are best for you based on your own personal health needs. Screenings make a huge difference because they allow us to catch conditions early where we can have a positive impact. And it's also important to understand your Medicare benefits. For example, Part B covers things you may not expect, like alcohol cessation and some tobacco cessation.
We know that coming out of the pandemic, loneliness and social isolation impacted so many people's mental health. And study after study out there, Dr. Taylor, I'm sure you're well aware, that shows that the longevity of a lot of seniors is based upon a lot of times their social circle, how socially active they are. So can you talk more about how social activity is so important for seniors?
Social isolation impacts as many as 43% of seniors. It puts them at high risk of health challenges. Loneliness can lead to mental health issues, and it can even lead to increased death from common conditions like heart disease. It can cause stroke and even lead to dementia. So here at Humana, we try to look at the whole person, and we try to identify our seniors that are at risk of social isolation and get them plugged into community resources and make sure that they're maximizing all the benefits that are available to them.
Where can our viewers go for more information? We have thousands that tune in each and every morning here at the Digital Desk.
The best place to go is Medicare.gov. You can compare plans and get information about star ratings, which tell you about the patient experience. And for more information on Humana's offerings, they can go to humana.com.
Okay, Dr. Jennifer Taylor, Senior Medical Director at Humana, we appreciate your time this morning. Thank you.
And thanks for joining us here on the Action News 5 Digital Desk here on a Monday. It's going to be a hot and toasty one across the Mid-South. Of course, a heat advisory in effect here today because of the heat and humidity combination. Actual air temperature today in the mid-90s, but it's going to operate much hotter than that. The summer heat stress elevated, especially across portions of east central Arkansas, northwest Mississippi here today. I think everybody's going to be dealing with the heat stress. That's not going to be the thing that we're going to have just pockets where it's not going to be the problem. I think it's just going to be a little bit more elevated here where feels like temperatures in these locations could very well crest closer to about 110 degrees in some instances in places like Marianna, up towards Forest City, Helena, West Helena, Clarksdale, Marks, as well as Tunica. Most other locations near 100 to 105 degrees in West Tennessee and northern portions of Mississippi. And unfortunately, this will probably be the case even going into your Tuesday as well. Of course, with the summer heat cranking up across the Mid-South, a reminder to drink plenty of hydrating fluids, wear light, loose-fitting clothing, take plenty of breaks in the shade or indoors, and checking in on folks, just being neighborly in this situation when it comes down to the heat, checking in on folks who may not have adequate access to cooling relief, and also your pets. Make sure they have cool drinking water, clean drinking water, and of course, just replenishing that because, of course, you need to drink plenty of water. They need to drink plenty of water as well. Let's go hour by hour with our First Alert Futurecast. For today, of course, it's going to be the heat and humidity bubbling up with the daytime heating. A few clouds, maybe an isolated shower, but many spots will likely remain dry here today. Highs middle to upper 90s. Tonight will drop into the 70s and near 80 degrees. I wouldn't be surprised if in the city we are still sitting like this morning, hovering right around 80 degrees when you wake up early tomorrow morning. Through the day on Tuesday, it's going to be more sunshine, but here's the thing. A few downpours may bubble up with the daytime heating as we get towards the afternoon hours. Give you a first alert to that. Of course, this time of the year, we're talking about the potential for those bubbled up downpours in random locations at random times. And of course, it will be during the peak heating. They'll cool you off, but those heavy downpours may put down a quick quarter of an inch of rainfall as well. And in its wake, yeah, the sun will come back out, but it'll be pretty steamy directly after that. Highs tomorrow topping out in the upper 90s. Here comes a frontal boundary dropping into the area. I'll give you a first alert to this. This will bring us a little better chance for rain and storms and maybe slightly cooler air for a brief moment in time. It's not going to be very much, though. The showers and storms, at least initially, will start to fade away as that first band drops southward. The showers and storms will kind of taper off in coverage. But there's still going to be some widely spaced downpours in a few spots, and this is going to be the launch point for more downpours to develop during the afternoon and evening hours. Some of these downpours that are able to develop in the afternoon period of your Wednesday could be quite heavy, maybe a strong storm or two with some gusty winds, frequent lightning, small hail, not completely out of the realm of possibility. That will continue to drop southward along the front and will clear things out just in time for your Thursday, but we have to get to that point first. One way to stay up to date anytime and everywhere is on the Action News 5 First Alert Weather app. Download it in the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. Upon the 7-day, we'll go 96 for today, 98 for Tuesday. I put the rain chances around 20% for Tuesday. And the reason why, because those downpours that are able to bubble up on Tuesday may be a little bit more prevalent in a few spots, but when they do come down, yeah, it could be a little heavy. The better chances for more widespread opportunities for rain will be Wednesday. A reminder, Wednesday is not going to be an all-day rain. It will not rain all day. But when the rain is coming down, it could come down heavily. Could be a strong storm or two. And there's a little better chance for more folks to see rain. I don't think everybody will see rain, though, on Wednesday. Some spots will stay completely dry. That is the feast or famine type of situation that you have to tangle with during the summer months. Drier by Thursday, Friday. I think we're low 90s Thursday, mid 90s on Friday, middle 90s again on Saturday, maybe upper 90s in a few spots. Low 90s again Sunday, and maybe a little better chance for some rain and storms to return as a frontal boundary, another one, approaches the region. But the general trend here is hot, it's humid. Welcome to summer, my friends. It's not changing anytime soon.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Action News 5 Digital Desk. I'm Andrew Douglas. What about the safest vehicles for this summer? Perhaps you have a teen that's getting ready to drive or is driving right now. You want the very best, safest car for them. And how do you find it? Well, let's bring in someone that can maybe give us some pointers with that. I'm joined now by Brian Moody, Executive Director of Kelley Blue Book. Brian, appreciate you joining us on the digital desk. I was actually on your site last night looking up the value of my car. It's a great site. I love it. But let's focus on this summer and some of the safest vehicles out there for the family and for the teens. What's kind of the number one thing we should all be looking for when we want that safe car?
Well, the first thing is when you're looking for a car for a kid or a teen, maybe even a first-time driver, the kind of car they want might not be the best car for them. So you have to kind of compromise a little bit. You don't want high-performance cars, and you don't want something that sits high off the ground. There are some exceptions, of course. Some kids have grown up in a rural environment. They've driven tractors and lots of stuff. They can handle all that. But for the average kid, high off the ground is a no-no. Big, high horsepower cars, that's also a no-no. And by the way, those things can affect your insurance rate. What you want is a good, safe car that's reasonably reliable, that has certain features from the factory. So you want airbags, of course. You want side head curtain airbags that protects your head in case of a side collision. You want traction control, and you want stability control. You can opt for a parking camera, but that's not necessary because you can always add that later. So don't get caught up in finding a car that has a parking camera from the factory. You can always add that to a car later, and it's not that much money.
Do you think a car would be the best option for some of those teens out there, or do you think maybe a small SUV? What do you think?
A small SUV could be okay if it's relatively low to the ground, say something like a Honda CR-V, something like that. Cars are best. What's interesting is a lot of kids have been telling me they prefer cars because being high off the ground makes it difficult for them to judge their surroundings. And a lot of kids have also been saying, well, I don't want an SUV. That's what my parents drove. That kind of thing happens from generation to generation. Think about what we didn't want. We didn't want station wagons. So cars are a good place to start. Cars, sedans especially, are also affordable because they're not in super high demand. All those safety features I just mentioned, all of those features, you can find that on a car for less than $10,000.
Good deal. That's a good piece of advice. What about the safest vehicles for families out there, summer road trips underway here, the best and safest car for that family?
Yeah, if you look at the government crash test ratings, which is the nhtsa.gov, that's the place where they publish their crash test results. You want a car that's a 4 or 5 stars at least, and then there'll be little notes in there. Sometimes they test a car that has optional equipment, so you want to look for that if you're buying a new car. Typically, the brands that perform quite well are brands like Kia, Hyundai, and Genesis. Toyota does quite well. Honda and Acura do quite well. Look for those cars, and look for model by model though. Look for a high crash test score. If you really want to get extra information, you can go to a website that's iihs.org, and they have a little bit different of a safety rating system, but they still give you crash test ratings, and they rate everything from the strength of the headlights to the safety equipment, how the airbags work, all that kind of stuff.
Are there maybe some common mistakes out there that some families make, just real easy mistakes to avoid?
Yeah, one of them is assuming that, any old car will do. And, well, they're going to have to earn the money to save up, and they're going to get a $1,500 car. That's not necessarily the case anymore. That used to be fine, because if you think about safety technology from, say, the 60s to the 90s, it didn't change that much. Maybe there was some better equipment, better seatbelts, but from the 2000s to now, in those 20 years, a lot of things have changed. Anti-lock brakes is one, airbags is another. And the other thing is, always go on to the government website, the same thing that I just mentioned, which is nhtsa.org or .gov, and look to see if your car that you're considering buying has any open recalls. Of course, everyone's talked about the Takata airbag story. There's lots of cars out there that have been unrepaired, and that's very dangerous. If you have one that's been repaired, it's going to be okay, but make sure before you buy a car there are no open recalls, and especially with the airbag. So people oftentimes look after they have the car. Well, there's a reason why it wasn't addressed to begin with. I wouldn't want to find that out when I'm the person who's the owner of the car. I would do all that work beforehand, and that would help me inform me about which car I'm going to buy.
This has been very informative, Brian. I appreciate you dropping some of this knowledge here with us on the Digital Desk.
Sure.
I leave the last question open to you. Anything else you feels important to the thousands of people that are watching us right now that you haven't mentioned yet?
Yeah, I think one thing that's worth considering is, just because you don't have a lot of money to spend doesn't mean that you can't find a safe car. I purchased a car recently from one of my kids, and it had all the features I just said, and it was $6,000. Now, it wasn't beautiful. It wasn't a hot rod or a sports car, but it had the basic safety features. And don't be worried about having to get a new car. Of course, the newer car you get, the more standard equipment it's going to have. But you can go back a few years, 2008, 2009, 2006, and find a car that has all the safety features that I just mentioned for a reasonable price and with reasonable miles too.
All right, Brian Moody, Kelley Blue Book Executive Director. Appreciate you coming on the Digital Desk.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so very much. Very optimistic too. I mean, $6,000 for a great, safe car for your teen. Fantastic news, especially in light of what we've seen with used car prices over the last several years. That gives us all hope who have kids driving, among other things. Brian, thanks.
Thanks for joining us here on the Action News 5 digital desk here on a Monday. It's going to be a hot and toasty one across the Mid-South. Of course, a heat advisory in effect here today because of the heat and humidity combination. Actual air temperature today in the mid-90s, but it's going to operate much hotter than that. The summer heat stress elevated, especially across portions of east central Arkansas, northwest Mississippi here today. I think everybody's going to be dealing with the heat stress. That's not going to be the thing that we're going to have just pockets where it's not going to be the problem. I think it's just going to be a little bit more elevated here where feels like temperatures in these locations could very well crest closer to about 110 degrees in some instances in places like Marianna, up towards Forest City, Helena, West Helena, Clarksdale, Marks, as well as Tunica. Most other locations near 100 to 105 degrees in West Tennessee and northern portions of Mississippi. And unfortunately, this will probably be the case even going into your Tuesday as well. Of course, with the summer heat cranking up across the Mid-South, a reminder to drink plenty of hydrating fluids, wear light, loose-fitting clothing, take plenty of breaks in the shade or indoors, and checking in on folks, just being neighborly in this situation when it comes down to the heat, checking in on folks who may not have adequate access to cooling relief, and also your pets. Make sure they have cool drinking water, clean drinking water, and of course, just replenishing that because, of course, you need to drink plenty of water. They need to drink plenty of water as well. Let's go hour by hour with our first alert futurecast. For today, of course, it's going to be the heat and humidity bubbling up with the daytime heating. A few clouds, maybe an isolated shower, but many spots will likely remain dry here today. Highs middle to upper 90s. Tonight will drop into the 70s to near 80 degrees. I wouldn't be surprised if in the city we are still sitting like this morning, hovering right around 80 degrees when you wake up early tomorrow morning. Through the day on Tuesday, it's going to be more sunshine, but here's the thing. A few downpours may bubble up with the daytime heating as we get towards the afternoon hours. Give you a first alert to that. Of course, this time of the year, we're talking about the potential for those bubbled up downpours in random locations at random times. And of course, it will be during the peak heating to cool you off, but those heavy downpours may put down a quick quarter of an inch of rainfall as well. And in its wake, yeah, the sun will come back out, but it'll be pretty steamy directly after that. Highs tomorrow topping out in the upper 90s. Here comes a frontal boundary dropping into the area. I'll give you a first alert to this. This will bring us a little better chance for rain and storms and maybe slightly cooler air for a brief moment in time. It's not going to be very much, though. The showers and storms, at least initially, will start to fade away as that first band drops southward. The showers and storms will kind of taper off in coverage. But there's still going to be some widely spaced downpours in a few spots, and this is going to be the launch point for more downpours to develop during the afternoon and evening hours. Some of these downpours that are able to develop in the afternoon period of your Wednesday could be quite heavy, maybe a strong storm or two with some gusty winds, frequent lightning, small hail, not completely out of the realm of possibility. That will continue to drop southward along the front and will clear things out just in time for your Thursday, but we have to get to that point first. One way to stay up to date anytime and everywhere is on the Action News 5 First Alert Weather app. Download it in the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. Upon the 7-day, we'll go 96 for today, 98 for Tuesday. I put the rain chances around 20% for Tuesday. The reason why, because those downpours that are able to bubble up on Tuesday may be a little bit more prevalent in a few spots, but when they do come down, yeah, it could be a little heavy. The better chances for more widespread opportunities for rain will be Wednesday. A reminder, Wednesday is not going to be an all-day rain. It will not rain all day, but when the rain is coming down, it could come down heavily, could be a strong storm or two, and there's a little better chance for more folks to see rain. I don't think everybody will see rain, though, on Wednesday. Some spots will stay completely dry. That is the feast or famine type of situation that you have to tangle with during the summer months. Drier by Thursday, Friday. I think we're low 90s Thursday, mid 90s on Friday, middle 90s again on Saturday, maybe upper 90s in a few spots, low 90s again Sunday, and maybe a little better chance for some rain and storms to return as a frontal boundary, another one, approaches the region. But the general trend here is hot, it's humid. Welcome to summer, my friends. It's not changing anytime soon.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Action News 5 Digital Desk. This Independence Day, it's always a good time to take a moment and honor and thank our veterans for their service. And while many of us are familiar with the sacrifices our veterans have made, the health challenges they face maybe are not as well known. In fact, veterans are twice as likely than those who haven't served in the military to develop ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease. Now, today I want to tell you that we are joined right now by U.S. Army veteran Elizabeth Vassar to learn more about her journey of living with ALS and the importance of raising awareness among the veteran community. She is joined by her friend Shannon. Good morning, ladies, to you both. And Elizabeth, I'd love to hear your personal story. Again, thank you for your service. But I'd love to hear your personal story as a veteran now living with ALS.
Yes, thank you for having us. I was in the military back about 20 years ago. I had served some time in the Middle East. Fast forward to 20 years later, and I started noticing symptoms that ended up being ALS. And as you said, veterans are twice as likely. And so now I advocate for and inform and have joined communities to support other people living with ALS.
Elizabeth, thank you so much for sharing your story and your personal journey. Did ALS run at all in your family? And what were some of the early symptoms when you first discovered maybe something's not right? And when you were diagnosed with ALS, what were some of the things you did right away?
Sure. It is not a genetic form for me. It is sporadic. And part of my experience was when I was teaching in special education, I started having trouble supporting the students when they were in crisis. I began falling and I was having trouble with my gait and balance. And so in going to the doctor for a diagnosis, I became aware that this disease, ALS, is a neurodegenerative disease and it progresses rapidly. And for me, the proper course of action was to take Radicava. That's why I'm here today with MTPA to share my story. This is my experience, and others could have a different experience. So everyone needs to talk with their doctor to discuss if this treatment is right for them. As with all medications, there are side effects. Some of those side effects could be hypersensitivity reactions, bruising, problems walking, or a headache. But for more information, talk to your doctor, and you can also visit radicava.com.
Let me ask you this: what has that medication done for you in the realm of ALS?
It's to support us. Not all medications you'll see a change from day to day, but it's to support our progression.
Okay, and have you noticed a difference?
Because it's, like I said, something to support your, at a cellular level, it is, in my experience, something that's benefiting me.
Okay. All right, Elizabeth, thank you so much. God bless you. Shannon, I want to ask you something. Can you share your experience as someone who is a friend of Elizabeth and part of the support system for a veteran living with ALS?
Absolutely. In the past, when we first met, we kind of bonded over exercise and being outdoors. We went for brisk walks, did bar classes together. And so we've had to change some of the ways that we do things. We do things that fit Elizabeth a little bit more, like Pilates, or just, really just having meaningful conversations. The support from the VA has been great. She's had some adaptive equipment that she has and case management.
Shannon, what advice do you have for others who are a part of a support system like this with ALS or, another disease or disorder?
Sure. I think it's important to be informed. Learning as much as you possibly can is really helpful. Creating memories together and having meaningful conversations are things that are really important as well.
Elizabeth, I want to give you the last word here. Anything else that you would like to mention to our audience? We have thousands of people who watch us each and every morning here on the Action News 5 digital desk. We have plenty of veterans in this West Tennessee, North Mississippi, Eastern Arkansas coverage area. I'll give you the last word.
Sure, and thank you for having us today. It's important for our community to come together to support each other so that we know and we feel that we are not alone. I've worked on awareness as my purpose, and one of those things that you can do is go to shareyouralsstory.com/Elizabeth for more information.
Elizabeth Vassar and Sharon McCarthy, thank you so much for coming on the digital desk. We really appreciate your time, and we appreciate your efforts this morning. It's really helped our audience. We thank you. Good morning. Welcome back to the Action News 5 digital desk. I'm Andrew Douglas. Faith leaders and black health advocates are marking this Sunday as No Menthol Sunday, and they're highlighting the tremendous harm that menthol cigarettes cause to the African American community. They are calling, some black health leaders are calling on the Biden administration to eliminate menthol cigarettes. The administration has considered this rule, banning menthol cigarettes, but has repeatedly delayed final action. Let's talk more about this topic with Delmonte Jefferson. He is the Executive Director, Center for Black Health and Equity. Delmonte, good morning. Tell me why this menthol ban hasn't played out yet, hasn't come into effect. Is it politics or perhaps something more? Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Yeah, it's definitely politics. Politics is playing into this, and we can understand it. We can understand the reasons for it. We can understand that there might be some black smokers, if menthol is banned, that actually disagree with that decision. But there are a lot of black smokers that really want the administration to focus on health, and that's what we want the administration to focus on health at this time.
Yeah, I get that. I get it completely, and kind of concerned that politics is being played in a situation where health is so vital and so important to so many others in our community. What's going to happen on Sunday, and what would you like to see done? I mentioned off the top you'd like to see the Biden administration go ahead and ban this, but what's going to be done from your perspective? Are you one of the organizers for this No Menthol Sunday?
Yeah. More than 10 years ago, a decade ago, we had a faith conference, and we had about 50 faith pastors to come into Atlanta, and we talked to them about the menthol problem, about menthol, what menthol was doing to our communities. So they came up with, and they said, we need to get together on one day of the year on a Sunday, and we need to all talk about the same topic from our pulpits. And so No Menthol Sunday is a national day of observance. It's led by the Center for Black Health and Equity, and it's an important opportunity. We engage faith leaders and their communities in the discussion about how to improve health outcomes for African Americans. So basically, No Menthol Sunday, pastors are talking from the pulpit about how to abstain from tobacco use. That's one thing. So that's a personal decision, but also how to get involved in policies to ban the sale of tobacco smoking in public places. And so the No Menthol Sunday has led to activities across the country with pastors and congregants really being active and taking a role in this decision.
So, Damani, we have thousands of people that join us each and every morning here on the Action News 5 digital desk. We're in Memphis, West Tennessee, North Mississippi, Eastern Arkansas. That's our coverage area. If some people are watching this, they want to get involved, they want to support No Menthol Sunday, what can they do?
Well, first of all, you can call us. You can contact our website just to find out if there's a church in your area, and there probably is, that's participating in No Menthol Sunday, and get involved with what's going on in terms of No Menthol Sunday. But secondly, again, No Menthol Sunday is a day for abstinence, to abstain from tobacco use. And so if you're using tobacco, use No Menthol Sunday to say, hey, just this day here, I'm going to quit using tobacco. And if it goes on to a second day or third day or a week, continue that fight and continue that effort. But call our website, see what church in your area is participating in No Menthol Sunday.
Let me ask you this. Do you have many lawmakers in your corner supporting this initiative? If so, tell us about that. And what about the website address? Tell us about that too.
Yeah, well, the website is nomentholsunday.org, nomentholsunday.org, and you can also get to it from our site at centerforblackhealth.org. But yes, we do have legislators in support of this. You've got legislators on both sides of this issue. And so we've got a ton of legislators that are supporting this. We've got a ton of legislators that have stood up and have banned smoking in their cities, in their jurisdiction. And so we appreciate that, and we encourage that, and we want others to be a part of it. So we've got legislators in our corners, and you can be sure that they're there to help in the fight.
I don't understand why public health and some kind of this initiative here, menthol cigarettes, needs to be a political football, if you will. I mean, this is, you don't want to play politics with health. You don't want to play politics with health of a specific community, a specific demographic. And it's disturbing to me when there are these kind of things taking place. Is that what you're hearing from a number of different constituents? What do you think?
Well, yeah, we've got some of our own leaders, some of our own leaders who will stand up and talk to the Biden administration and tell them, you don't need to ban menthol. That's a problem. That's a big problem, because what they're not telling them is that these same leaders have taken money from the industry themselves to have this argument. So if this was just their argument, if it was just how they felt about this, that would be okay. But the fact that they're getting paid by the industry, it's not their argument. This is the industry's argument.
Okay, Delmonte Jefferson, nomentholsunday.org. We appreciate your time on the Action News 5 digital desk. Good luck on Sunday, and good luck on the initiatives going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good morning. Welcome back to the Action News 5 Digital Desk. I'm Andrew Douglas. We all want those gas prices to come down, don't we? Unfortunately, they're not expected to this summer. Right now, it's hovering around $3 a gallon for us here in the Mid-South. I'm joined now to talk a little bit more about these gas prices and what to expect with David Holt. He is the president of the Consumer Energy Alliance, and he can maybe talk about ways that we can find a little bit of relief because, David, let's be honest, the inflation is killing so many people out there living paycheck to paycheck. How do we find relief right now? Good morning.
Andrew, you're exactly right. It's killing everything. And inflation is also directly tied to the price of gasoline and the price of diesel. Because if you think about it, everything that you buy at the grocery store, literally kind of everything you buy, if you're delivering via Amazon, anything like that, all that is delivered by a diesel truck. So when diesel prices go up, the price of all commodities go up. So, one of those big drivers in inflation, and why we're paying more for groceries and why we're going to probably pay more for that 4th of July barbecue next week is largely due to the high price of diesel fuel. So relatively good news. We are higher, much higher than we have been in previous years, but we're kind of flat nationally. I know kind of in the mid-Atlantic, middle part of the country, we're a little bit down, but nationally we're at about $3.40 some odd cents a gallon. We're down though, primarily because of lack of demand. Folks that traditionally take that summertime drive for vacation just aren't doing that so much this year. So demand is less than what was expected. So therefore the price of gasoline has come down a little bit. So that's kind of a little bit of a mixed bag. We'd love to see, that ability to take that family vacation, do all the things we want to do in our cars. But that's offset by the high price of everything. Food prices have gone up over 20% in the last 3 years. The average family's paying for food and other commodities about $15,000 more a year now than we were just a few years ago. And fuel prices, gasoline, diesel play a large part of all that.
$15,000. That is a huge amount. We get the feedback here in Memphis in the Mid-South, David, of people saying that they're just having a hard time living these days. But when you say life essentially is $15,000 more than it was just a few years ago, that is incredible to me and not in a good way. How do we bring down the cost of everyday items, the cost of living?
That's such a great question. And we need to recognize first and foremost that fuel and energy prices, gasoline, diesel, electricity are so inextricably tied to inflation and the price of everything else. So when we're serious about our energy policy, when we have a good, balanced, rational energy policy that includes oil and natural gas and renewable energy, looks for ways to add nuclear power back to our energy mix, doesn't create these restrictive energy policies or excessive mandates, all these things that are serving to drive up the price of energy in this country, particularly in the last few years. When we're serious about that, we understand that the United States, from an energy resource standpoint, is one of the leading countries on earth to meeting our energy needs here at home. And with innovation and ingenuity, we're developing new, safer, more environmentally responsible ways to meet our energy needs. So all those things are coming together. It's really our local, state, and federal policies that are making it harder to produce and deliver energy, and that's driving up these prices. So when you think about it, whether you're Republican, Independent, Democrat, it doesn't matter. Finding nonpartisan solutions to that kind of all the above approach to meeting our gasoline, diesel, electricity prices, understanding that those prices drive inflation and the price of everything, eggs, milk, butter, all the things you're buying at the grocery store week in, week out, then we can kind of take back our energy policy and be a little more thoughtful about it. So it really kind of begins with us, consumers, and we got a big election coming up in November. So make your voices heard, make energy part of your voting equation, and it doesn't matter what political party you're in.
That certainly is something on the minds of many people out there. I mean, gosh, the economy is the number one thing, and that includes inflation and just the cost of living and whatnot. You know, you often think, I mean, is it one of those situations where when I get in the car and when I go out, should I go out and kind of tackle all these errands at once so I can save on gas and not go back and forth, that sort of thing? I mean, are we at that point yet? I guess for many of us, we are.
We really are. And when you get above $3, $3.50 a gallon, it becomes a pocketbook issue, and families have to start making those hard choices between, say, a gallon of milk and a gallon of gasoline, and it really hits home above $4 a gallon. But you're exactly right. If you're gonna ways that you can get more out of that tank of gasoline, you know, avoid jackrabbit starts and stops. Make sure that your trunk is not excessively filled, you know, over too much weight in your trunk. When you're on the highway, drive with your windows up. Use your air conditioning. That actually saves gasoline. If you're going to run errands, like you said, do all your errands at once, so you're out one time and then return home. So there's ways that you can extend that tank of gasoline a little bit and hopefully save a little bit on the pocketbook. But you know, really, it's going to be taking back our energy policy, looking at this for 2025, 2026, and how we can do a longer term job, better job as a nation of understanding energy and what it means to our pocketbooks and our home costs.
I like what you just said. There was a number of different options. We have thousands of people that watch us each and every morning here on the Digital Desk. They're always looking for different ways and different kinds of methods to save. Anything else you want to mention before we let you go, David?
No, I think being aware of it, that's absolutely key. And I know we are, you know, when you, and the key point here is, you know, when you look at the cumulative impact on inflation on that average family, and it's just over $15,000 a year now compared to 2021, that burden that we all have felt for the last several years is impactful. And energy prices, gasoline prices, things that we rely on a daily basis play a large role in that. So first, be aware of it. Second, understand that it should be a nonpartisan issue, because folks on fixed incomes are the ones that are most burdened by this, but it impacts all of us. So Democrat, Republican, Independent, doesn't matter. Let your voices be heard in November on energy policy, and let's try to take back that energy policy in this country.
Amen to that. David Holt, great conversation there. Consumer Energy Alliance President, we appreciate your time on the Digital Desk. Thank you.
Andrew, thank you so much.
All right, another live look from our High Five camera there. You can see it is a warm one already, 90 degrees at 10:38 as we look live downtown. We'll be talking about your forecast in 1 minute.
Thanks for joining us here on the Action News 5 Digital Desk here on a Monday. It's going to be a hot and toasty one across the Mid-South. Of course, a heat advisory in effect here today because of the heat and humidity combination. Actual air temperature today in the mid-90s, but it's going to operate much hotter than that. The summer heat stress elevated, especially across portions of East Central Arkansas, Northwest Mississippi here today. I think everybody's going to be dealing with the heat stress. That's not going to be the thing that we're going to have just pockets where it's not going to be the problem. problem. I think it's just going to be a little bit more elevated here, where feels like temperatures in these locations could very well crest closer to about 110 degrees in some instances in places like Marianna, up towards Forest City, Helena, West Helena, Clarksdale, Marks, as well as Tunica. Most other locations near 100 to 105 degrees in West Tennessee and northern portions of Mississippi. And unfortunately, this will probably be the case even going into your Tuesday as well. Of course, with the summer heat cranking up across the Mid-South, a reminder to drink plenty of hydrating fluids, wear light, loose-fitting clothing, take plenty of breaks in the shade or indoors, and checking in on folks, just being neighborly in this situation when it comes down to the heat, checking in on folks who may not have adequate access to cooling relief, and also your pets. Make sure they have cool drinking water, clean drinking water, and of course, just replenishing that, because of course, you need to drink plenty of water. They need to drink plenty of water as well. Let's go hour by hour with our First Alert Futurecast. For today, of course, it's going to be the heat and humidity bubbling up with the daytime heating. A few clouds, maybe an isolated shower, but many spots will likely remain dry here today. Highs middle to upper 90s. Tonight will drop into the 70s to near 80 degrees. I wouldn't be surprised if in the city we are still sitting like this morning, hovering right around 80 degrees when you wake up early tomorrow morning. Through the day on Tuesday, it's going to be more sunshine, but here's the thing. A few downpours may bubble up with the daytime heating as we get towards the afternoon hours. Give you a first alert to that. Of course, this time of the year, we're talking about the potential for those bubbled up downpours in random locations at random times. And of course, it will be during the peak heating. They'll cool you off, but those heavy downpours may put down a quick 1/4 of an inch of rainfall as well. And in its wake, yeah, the sun will come back up, but it'll be pretty steamy directly after that. Highs tomorrow topping out in the upper 90s. Here comes a frontal boundary dropping into the area. I'll give you a first alert to this. This will bring us a little better chance for rain and storms and maybe slightly cooler air for a brief moment in time. It's not going to be very much, though. The showers and storms, at least initially, will start to fade away as that first band drops southward. The showers and storms will kind of taper off in coverage. But there's still going to be some widely spaced downpours in a few spots, and this is going to be the launch point for more downpours to develop during the afternoon and evening hours. Some of these downpours that are able to develop in the afternoon period of your Wednesday could be quite heavy, maybe a strong storm or two with some gusty winds, frequent lightning, small hail, not completely out of the realm of possibility. That will continue to drop southward along the front and will clear things out just in time for your Thursday, but we have to get to that point first. One way to stay up to date anytime and everywhere is on the Action News 5 First Alert Weather app. Download it in the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. Upon the 7-day, we'll go 96 for today, 98 for Tuesday. I put the rain chances around 20% for Tuesday. The reason why is because those downpours that are able to bubble up on Tuesday may be a little bit more prevalent in a few spots, but when they do come down, yeah, it could be a little heavy. The better chances for more widespread opportunities for rain will be Wednesday. A reminder, Wednesday is not going to be an all-day rain. It will not rain all day. But when the rain is coming down, it could come down heavily. It could be a strong storm or two. And there's a little better chance for more folks to see rain. I don't think everybody will see rain, though, on Wednesday. Some spots will stay completely dry. That is the feast or famine type of situation that you have to tangle with during the summer months. Drier by Thursday, Friday. I think we're low 90s Thursday, mid 90s on Friday, middle 90s again on Saturday, maybe upper 90s in a few spots. Low 90s again Sunday, and maybe a little better chance for some rain and storms to return as a frontal boundary, another one, approaches the region. But the general trend here is hot, it's humid. Welcome to summer, my friends. It's not changing anytime soon.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Action News 5 Digital Desk. I'm Andrew Douglas. Walking still remains an ideal exercise, especially for older adults aiming to increase their activity levels. There's so many benefits when it comes to walking. It's very simple, and it can do profound things for a person's health. Better sleep, regulated mental health, reduced risk of cardiovascular complications, and improved overall quality of life. Let's talk more about this issue with Dr. Jana Robinson, Medical Director of Oak Street Health. Dr. Robinson, good morning. Thank you for coming on the Digital Desk. Tell me more about why walking is so beneficial to some of the older Americans out there. Good morning.
Andrew, thank you for having me. Walking is a very easy exercise that can be done anywhere and actually has a lot of benefits for our older adult community. We are seeing recent studies that simply walking briskly for 30 minutes a day, 4 times a week, improves mental clarity, and actually decreases the risk of developing Alzheimer's. We are seeing that it does a bunch of different things, including reduce stress and help sleep as well.
Yeah, so give me the idea behind the guidelines of 30 minutes a day, 4 times each week.
These guidelines come from a recent study that was published in the Journal of Alzheimer's Disease Reports. And they took a group of previously sedentary people between the ages of in their 70s and 80s. And they were also experiencing some mild cognitive decline. And they had them briskly walk for 30 minutes, 4 times a week. In just a few months, they actually saw improvement in their brain function. So that's where some of this recommendation comes from. There's also been several studies talking about the 10,000 step day rule, where a recent one showed for our older adults, people over the age of 65, getting in somewhere between 6,000 and 8,000 steps actually offer the same benefit as a young person or a younger person walking 10,000 steps a day.
I'm curious about the mental health aspects. We know about the physical aspects of walking. Tell me about the cognition, and does it matter where you walk? Could it be an urban area, a rural area? Is there a difference? Are there more benefits with one or the other? What are you saying?
There really aren't more benefits one way or another. Of course, being outside and nice weather is always beautiful. You get a little extra vitamin D, but walking in general, regardless of where you walk, does help your not only your physical health, but your mental health as well. There's a little bit of benefit to being outside and walking with other people. You get the socialization and reduce your isolation. Walking in the sunshine can help treat and decrease symptoms of seasonal depression, which is often associated with being inside in the winter. But walking in general just helps reduce stress and improve sleep quality.
Yes, some places, unfortunately, in Memphis, there's a crime issue, and I guess people can drive and perhaps go to, Shelby Farms Park and some other areas, maybe some parks. What would you recommend for someone who might be a little concerned about, going outside and walking?
Yeah, so that's a real problem that, it's a actual problem that we have here in Memphis. Our community centers, like our YMCAs, have wonderful places to walk. Oak Street, our community rooms, offer regular exercise classes that are open to all the older adults. You don't have to be our patient to participate in those in our community rooms. And definitely we can offer things like walking clubs at Oak Street if there's community interest. So walking with a group of people is definitely can make people feel more safe. If none of those things are options for you, even simply walking in place or walking in a path around your home will give you benefit.
So many different benefits here. What else can we talk about with regards to the benefits of walking?
So again, benefits, it's endless. Exercise in general, walking being a wonderful exercise that anybody can do. It doesn't take any equipment with the exception of proper shoes and a bottle of water. Anybody can do that. You can start slow and work your way up, which is a great way to decrease your stress levels and improve your health. People who exercise, regardless of their age or conditions, actually live longer than those who don't. So it is a really great thing to add to your repertoire if you aren't doing it. Older adults should take precaution though with our days warming up. That older adults are easily more dehydrated, so they want to make sure they hydrate and wear proper fitting shoes and clothing.
Okay, Dr. Janet Robinson, we appreciate your time, Senior Medical Director of Oak Street Health. Thanks so much for joining us on the Digital Desk. We appreciate it. Good morning. Welcome back to the Action News 5 Digital Desk. I'm Andrew Douglas. Did you know that some people who have really bad allergies throughout the year, they go to an acupuncturist for treatment? This is a thing, as certainly we know about allergies here in Memphis and the Mid-South. So many people suffer from it. Well, now this treatment is helping a lot of people out there. Let's bring in Jessica Puckett. She's an acupuncturist in Memphis, and she is someone that does this procedure. Jessica, good morning. Tell me first off, the idea behind this, where acupuncture helps people, especially those allergy sufferers. Good morning.
Good morning. Acupuncture is a 5,000-year-old procedure. It's been around for many millennia. However, we have honed in through research over the past few decades on how it actually works. And we have discovered there are really intricate connections in the ear that connect with the brain and how your body responds to your stimuli around you. So this procedure that we utilize for allergies is called the SAAT, S-A-A-T, auricular acupuncture treatment for allergies. And it's very effective, about 80 to 95% effective in the way your body responds to different allergens.
That's pretty fantastic. And my understanding is that you are the only practitioner in Memphis doing this type of treatment. Is that in fact the case? And tell me why others aren't doing this.
Well, it is a fairly new protocol that we're using. I actually went to train with Dr. Nadir Solomon, who is the founder of this particular protocol for allergies. And I got my certification through him. In fact, I'm going back to train with him for more with some clinical training to get deeper into research and studies. But it has recently become known specifically for treating alpha-gal, which is the red meat allergy that you receive from a tick bite. And it's very effective for that. So that is what it's become more popularized for. The word is spreading for that treatment. However, we can treat any type of allergens, environmental, food, toxic exposures, and things like that.
So it's very fascinating to me. So the procedure is referred to as SAAT. How many treatments have you done? And are these people that are, really big allergy sufferers, or are they just kind of moderate? And give me the before and after.
Well, we can treat anything from just slight sensitivities up to anaphylactic shock. The way we're not, just like most things in medicine, you can't really say you're curing. You're just desensitizing the body from the reactions that you portray as you are exposed to those allergens. I've done many, many, many treatments. I can't even count how many now at this point. More so for alpha-gal. I filled up right away when I started advertising that I was treating for alpha-gal, because this is such a problem and it's so prolific in this area. And out of all of my patients, most people are now desensitized to their allergens. It's very non-invasive. However, I will say that if you are a person that has anaphylactic reactions to certain allergens, we will not ever suggest for you to re-expose yourself to that, but this will help to desensitize your reaction in case of accidental exposures or cross-contaminations.
A lot of people, Jessica, I'm sure you know this, they wonder if acupuncture hurts them, because they see the pins and everything like that. That's what they think. Give us your response when people come to you like that.
Well, the needles that we use are in the ear, and they will be retained, but they are tiny, tiny. Most of the time, when I show people the needles, they're like, "Oh my gosh, that's it!" And of course, you don't feel them entering in your ear at all. We do retain them for 3 to 4 weeks, depending on the severity of the allergies. And I give you a whole aftercare instructions. Most people never even have a knowledge that they're there. They forget that they're there. They're not painful at all. They're not painful going in or coming out. So it's a very non-invasive, minimally invasive treatment for something that is a chronic problem.
Gotcha. And you mentioned, acupuncture's for all kinds of ailments and allergies. I mean, is it something for, someone who has a an allergy, like a food allergy? I mean, is it just everything?
Yeah, I mean, alpha-gal being one of the food allergies that is for red meat or any hoof animals, really, it's an oligosaccharide allergy, up to gluten, dairy, peanuts, soy, or even chemical exposures like certain laundry detergents or perfume, chemicals exposures that, people that have eczema have a lot of sensitivities to chemicals, whether job related or whatsoever. So we can help address a lot of things with this procedure.
That's fantastic. Okay, good deal. So we're learning about this right now. We have thousands of people that watch us on the digital desk, Jessica. If someone wanted to learn more about the SAAT or anything else, where can they go?
Well, my website is saatmemphis.com. I have a lot of FAQs on the procedure. I actually have some videos explaining the procedure. You can chat with me. There's a chat function, or send me an email if you have very specific questions. I'm more than happy to respond and answer any questions that you may have. If you want to get started right away, there's a book online function that you can go ahead and just book online with me, and we can get going.
All right, Jessica Puckett, we appreciate you and the knowledge you just dropped on the digital desk. Thank you so much for illuminating us to this procedure to help people who are big-time allergy sufferers. We appreciate it. All right, that does it for us here in the Action News 5 Digital Desk. Have yourself a wonderful afternoon. We got Action News 5 Midday coming up at the top of the hour with Jerry Askin and Ariana Poindexter. They'll take you through the next hour. And then, of course, join me once again for another edition of the Digital Desk. We start bright and early at 7 o'clock. We go to 11 o'clock each and every weekday morning on all your digital platforms, Amazon Fire, Apple TV, YouTube, and Roku, and digital channel 5.3. You can watch us there on television, or channel 907 for Xfinity customers. Have a great day.